And we are live. All right, here we go. So this week on the Plastic Posse, we bring you controversy.
It's like they went to the vet and got neutered.
Grant woke up and chose violence this morning. I feel like Grant is creating a hostile environment.
I take my work very seriously. Bridgerton's will the Neanderthal yield?
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow, bless you, Jensen.
Damn.
You want to take a minute and go wipe off the wall?
I'm so glad I was not looking. I was like, nope. We will get through this.
I don't think we will. We are not the men to do this.
Lessons learned. Don't employ the children. Blame Bon
Always.
Banani.
Blame Bon Banani.
Banja Banani.
Banja Banani.
I want to hear every hyphen.
Spinning bing.
Who let this guy on? Remember the huttatapa.
Shouldn't get Tim get and it's written and I still can't do it.
Wow,
Freudian
that was
slip.
the mother of all Freudian slips. Welcome to episode 85 of the Plastic Posse podcast, brought to you by Tankcraft. Today, I'm joined with four of my illustrious co-hosts and one special guest. So we're going to go around the room and see how everyone's doing. I'll start off in Utah with Doug, the master of serpents. How are you today, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. I am happily working with my serpents, as a matter of fact. I even paired a couple of ball pythons today. Maybe we'll get some babies soon.
Outstanding. Anything going on your bench?
Probably more than there should be, like too many projects, but I'm having fun. I started a couple of kits over the holidays. The Ukrainian leopard, the Tamiya's Ukrainian leopard tank in 35th scale. So I started that, and I kind of got a wild hair and started the TACOM 1/72nd scale Missouri, USS Missouri turret number 1. There's a lot of photo etch in that kit, so that's kind of slowing me down, but I'm still working on it. It's going to happen.
Awesome. Those turret kits are super fun and can't wait to see what you do with it. And you got the turn barrels for it as well, right?
I did. I ordered the turn barrels on your recommendation. They're beautiful. They fit perfectly. I've already dry fitted them, and they're perfect for that. Really excited about that. I also finished my B-Wing finally after a year. I actually got Facebook reminded me, hey, here's some memories from a year ago, and there's my B-Wing starting assembly a year ago. So I finally got that done, painted it in special markings for a friend of mine, and have already turned that one over to him. And it was a lot of fun. They're just fun kits. Of course, it's Bandai.
Awesome. Definitely. B-Wing's one of my favorite. I need to get one, but I think you and Scott have cornered the market in those kits.
I don't have one left.
It's Y-Wings, right? No, I'm mistaken.
I've cornered the market on Y-Wings.
How many do you have? Like 7?
5 unbuilt. I built 2, so that makes 7, right?
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust. All right, moving across the pond. Jensen, how are you today, sir?
I'm okay. Totally didn't fall asleep at 10 a.m. and wake up 3 minutes before we were due to record. Yeah, I'm doing well. Just busy with stuff. But yeah, can't complain. If I did, no one would listen.
That's true. What's on your bench?
So far, on my bench, there's a box. There's been a box there for a couple of weeks now. I've said my first project for the year is going to be the mini art milk truck with the 2 delivery milkmen. I want to do a little civilian vignette of like the 1930s, 40s. It's still unopened, still on my box from pre-Christmas. But yeah, just for whatever reason, not got around to starting it. But that is the first project. I was kind of torn between that and the Secret Santa I got from TJ, which was the US Army G7-105 panel van, which just looks amazing. As soon as that came out, I fell in love with it. So I was actually kind of torn between that or the milk truck. But I'm going to stick with the milk truck for now when I eventually crack it open. But yeah, that's what's going to be hitting my bench as soon as I actually get to the bench.
Awesome. That panel van, that's the one that I think Rick is working on right now, correct?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I think Rick did one where it's got chunkier tires and a bit more. It looks a bit more lifted. But yeah, it looks really cool.
Nice. Well, certainly looking forward to both those projects. The milk van, something about those mini art, like civilian approaches. You got the milk van, you got a lot of repair shop ones, the cheesemonger. That's the one I want with all the big Parmesan wheel in the back. I know Scott eyes that every time. He's a cheese man. Look at him.
You know it. I feel like John, I feel like before we move on, we gotta paint a picture for the listening audience. Our good friend, his Highness Sir Jensen, is attending our recording in a beautiful dark blue Snuggie that is adorned with eggplants or aubergines, as it were.
And listeners, he's not really a sir.
I just want to explain this attire. So yeah, it is an eggplant covered Snuggie. If you know what that means, you know what that means. My mum bought it for Christmas for me, not knowing what that means. And when I explained it, it was quite the story.
I'm just enamored by the amount of Snuggies that Jensen has. I kind of missed the hamburger one myself, or cheeseburger, whatever it was. So it just,
They take turns. They come in shifts.
All right, we're going to go back across and stay in Utah. And Scott, how is your day going? I know you've been editing a lot, but tell us about the progress on your bench, because you got 2 projects rocking and rolling.
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, the first one is a Tamiya 148 scale Spitfire Mark I. I'm not sure it's quite as old as Doug's B-Wing, but it's close. I got it out recently and started working on it, and it's their newer kit. It's just beautiful. Really taking my time on it. Got the wings and the fuselage all together, and now I'm just working the seams. I've never worked the seams on an aircraft this much, so I hope the work pays off. So that's been great. And then my good friend Mr. Banani got me a mini art Lance Bulldog tractor, and I got it open and just started fiddling with it, and I just can't put it down. It's a great little kit. I love the subject. It's a really, really nice kit, and it's been a lot of fun working on that as well. So kind of have a civilian, tractor as well as the aircraft. So really having a great time at the bench.
Awesome. And listeners, just to prove a point, Scott does build models. So there you go. Okay, we're going to stick in the States and just go a little bit west. And Grant, how's your day going? What's on your bench?
I'm doing good on the bench. I finished up my 148 scale 4x2 ambulance by Tamiya, which is a great little kit. Did a desert scheme on that. Whole bunch of decals on that little thing. 14 decals on a 148 scale truck. It's kind of crazy, but I don't know how you airplane guys do it. That's all done. I finished up a Vindicari Assassin last night. I have been lucky enough to weasel in a position for next weekend in Vegas with our good friend Rick Lawler and JB to sit and do some painting with AK at the Las Vegas Gamers Convention. So I'm trying to work on my skills a little bit, because there's going to be some fantastic painters there, and I can't wait. So that's what I've been pretty much doing, is just trying to work on some skills a little bit.
Grant, you say airplane guys. So I sent Grant a 148 scale Tamiya BF 109 G6. I'm going to challenge you. That is every bit as nice as this Spitfire I've been working on. Give it a try, man. And on the BF 109, on the rear fuselage, you don't have to fill that seam. That seam is supposed to be there on the top and the bottom. So do it, man. Give it a shot.
Yeah. The fact that you have to leave the seam in there is like why I want to build that aircraft. Sorry. I can't. I have so much trouble with seams. I can't get those seams to go away. But thank you so much, Scott. And I really do appreciate it. And that's my goal. That's my kit to have done by June timeframe, is the BF 109 that my good friend Scott sent me. I picked up a Edward kit for it, which is the panel and the seat belts and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, can I jump in and ask Scott a question? He's talking about seams. How many ways did you fill the seams on your Spitfire? Because you said you worked them hard, but you told me, 4 different things you did to those seams?
Yeah, so first of all, the kit is really great. So the seams are minimal, but I want these to be perfect, air quotes, right? So I hit it with an application of Bondo spot putty first to kind of, fill whatever gaps were there. And those would have been caused primarily by yours truly, just sanding and whatever. And then followed up with some Tamiya surface primer, and then sanded those. And then I've been watching Justin Lentz and a bunch of our aircraft buddies, and they've been talking about ghost seams. And there's a seam, on the Spitfire on the nose in front of the canopy. There's a great big, almost flat area where any bit of a seam is just it's gonna raise its hand and scream and yell at you. So I did 2 applications of super glue down the whole seam to make sure that those seams don't come back, and then sanded and polished those out. So yeah, kind of a 4-step process I've been doing. We'll see how it turns out, but I'm pretty excited about it so far. It looks pretty good.
Very cool.
Nice. All right. And we're going to go over to our special guest tonight, and that is Zach Grizzle. He has appeared once or twice on the podcast. I know he doesn't get the limelight as much as Jackson, who appears half as much.
Yeah.
And says,
who is
I made that man. And I will say this every time. He's only here because of me.
And Zach's got a special guest with him. But Zach, how are you today? What are you working on?
I'm currently working on getting my cat to leave me alone for 2 seconds. Aside from that, I've got a very funky T-34 that I'm working on for the Wilder AK group build. So my idea was it's like an infantry support vehicle. So it's got sort of a BDRM style turret on it. That's sort of the inspiration I took it from. So I drew that up in CAD over the course of like 3 weeks because I'm not very good at CAD. Printed it out. And then about 27 people so far have sent me stuff for this project. So Stephen Reed has sent me a bunch of stuff. Ian Bonner sent me the add-on armor from the T-34E, the border kit, which makes it look pretty cool. It really beefs it out, which I like. And then the illustrious JB is now sending me a Kieran mine roller for it because it doesn't have enough stuff on it already. Let's see. And I started to do the world's strangest slammer build the other day, which is a 135th resin French 120 millimeter mortar. Because, that's a slammer build right there, right?
Awesome. I can't wait to see the T-34 done. I think it's a cornucopia of aftermarket and parts.
Very much so.
But what do you think about the paint scheme? You going just straight green, or are you going to be a little bit explorative?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I want to do like a tropical kind of scheme because my idea is this is set in like 1946 in Japan, as if like the bombs were never dropped, so they actually had to go through with Operation Downfall and the Soviets were a part of it. But I can't decide if I want to do just like green and like a tan, or if I want to add other colors in there, try and be kind of funky. I haven't decided yet. I'll see when I get there. I'll start spraying paint on it and see what sticks.
Yeah, you'll strip it 7 times.
Exactly. So it won't matter anyway.
We'll see every option.
Yeah,
so.
Precisely.
He'll get it to where we all really, really like it, and then he'll be like, "Nah, I stripped it and started over." Like the face on that last figure he's been working on.
Oh yeah, and the figure I'm working on, yeah, that's been painted 12 times. Just the face. I painted the body 1 time. It's stuck. I like it. It's the face that's giving me trouble.
All right. Well, your new nickname is Zach. Why do it once when you can do it a dozen times?
Exactly.
All right. I'll polish this section off with what's on my bench. Sergeant York, obviously, I've posted a lot on Facebook about it. Trying to get that done before the end of the year, end of the month, I should say. It's a sweet kit. It's hard. It lacks pedigree, I think. Tack on B team potentially, but the effort is worth the end result because I actually really like where it's going. And special thanks to Jackson, who got that for a Secret Santa for me last year. I was hoping to get it done before the end of the year, but just with holidays and, being under the weather, looking to accomplish it by the end of the month. And then also, I got to give a major shout out to BJ DeBecker from Panzer Concepts. He was kind enough to give me the first production sample of the Vomog. Hopefully I said that right, Peter Fidlowski and Hendrick, and with the 88 millimeter gun on it. So it is a sweet kit. I have assembled most of the chassis and have a lot of the body done. I need to get back on it. I wanted to get the Sergeant York to a spot where I could, essentially let the oils and enamels cure for a few days and jump back on the Vomog. So I'll be doing that this weekend. It's a beautiful kit. It's supposed to be out sometime this month. I know Andy's had a special on it selling pre-order, and I think they'll be coming out soon. It's gorgeous. It's a lot of kit, to be honest. I think one of the things I'm most impressed with is the wheels. So they are injection molded and they're like sandwiched. So there is no center seam you have to really worry about. Rubber tires aren't an issue. It's just overall really, really nice and straightforward too. There's one photo etch fret for the screens on the fighting compartment, but otherwise it's a pretty badass looking vehicle, and I can't wait to paint it. I'll do 3-tone, standard JB, a 3-tone instead of the Dunkelgel or the Dunkelgrau, I should say. But this will be a vehicle from Budapest, where essentially those vehicles were all destroyed. This unit, talking to BJ, is actually really interesting. They were originally designed and converted to support Adolf Hitler. So when he was going to be in a city or in a specific location, they would deploy and essentially serve as auxiliary anti-aircraft there. So they had the 88s, and I think they had Horches with 20 mils as well that were part of that kind of anti-aircraft garrison that would go and follow him around. Obviously, late in the war, when Hitler wasn't flying, they were turned to, essentially direct action elements, and they got slaughtered in Budapest because they're soft skin vehicles. But long story short, sorry for the brief history, but I just want to really highlight this kit. BJ was kind enough to give it to me, but everything I say about it, it is a very nice kit, very straightforward. Any builder can have confidence in building it, and it's just a neat subject. You don't see it often at all. And I think there was 1 or 2 resin kits in the past, but special thanks to BJ, and also a big shout out. This is his first kit going to the mainstream market in terms of injection molded. So I think that's quite an accomplishment. Not a lot of people get to do that, and he designed it from head to toe essentially in CAD and worked with the folks at DOSWorks and the molders in China. So major shout out to him. Really appreciate his efforts, and he's a super nice guy, and I'm looking forward to everything he makes. He's, if you're interested in BJ's work, you not only can pick up the Vomag, but check out his website, Panzer Concepts. We'll link it in the show notes. He's got a lot of unique resin stuff there too. I know a lot of us on here have built it. So major shout out to BJ. I will end with really quickly Las Vegas Open, going with Grant next weekend. So this will drop this upcoming Tuesday, which the following weekend will be the Las Vegas Open. Rick Lawler has been kind enough to invite the Triple P, and Grant and I will be stopping over and doing demos at the AK booth. If you happen to be at the place, stop by and say hi. I certainly look forward to it. Wargaming and gaming in general is something very new to me, but I'm constantly impressed with the miniature painters and really look forward to seeing everything in person.
Yeah, JB, if I could go back, first of all, Sergeant York, I know you had to wrestle and fight with that thing, but man, it's been worth it. It's really, really looking good. And it's been exciting to see you collaborate with Grant on the Reforger markings. And I really think it's going to be something special. It looks terrific so far. Also want to echo what you're saying about BJ, excuse me. Excited to see him go mainstream. If anybody's seen Andy's preview video, that kit, it's fantastic. He did a great job with it. So congratulations from me as well to BJ. Just fantastic work.
Yeah, definitely.
The Plastic Posse podcast is sponsored by Tankcraft. In addition to their awesome cutting mats, Tankcraft also makes some incredible scale modeling tools for your workbench. Want to keep that extra thin cement off of your bench and in the bottle where it belongs? Check out the Tankcraft glue base, designed to stop glue spills in their tracks. The glue base is made from solid milled aluminum. It comes with a stable rubber base pad, and it can accommodate most square and round cement buffs. And while you're there, check out their line of cutting mats and other unique modeling tools as well. Remember, Posse listeners get 15% off their first order by using the code POSSE15. That's POSSE15. So head on over to Tankcraft right now. That's TANKRAFT.com.
So we are going to move past this section, which the intro took a little bit longer than last time, but it's expected. We had a long break and we're back at it. So we're going to jump into our first discussion topic, a potentially controversial one. But no, the topic is
Jensen Snuggie.
Yeah, exactly. So the first topic we're going to discuss today is dry brushing. Like it, love it, or hate it. So I'll set the stage. Dry brushing is, I'll say, a traditional modeling technique. I think you can trace its lineage back to, probably the start, 60s, 70s, and certainly popularized in the 80s by people like Francois Vertlinden and then also Tony Greenland. I think what we've seen is a resurgence of that technique because in the 80s and the 90s, it was very popular. And it has stuck around with some modelers today, but I think, dare I say, mainstream, and especially when you look at paint manufacturers and techniques in modeling magazines and through those paint manufacturers, that technique has regressed probably starting from the early 2000s. And you can see a reemergence of it right now. And I know some artists and some creators have been steadfast supporters of the technique, but I know some of us have gone away from it, coming back to it. Some of us have stuck with it. But I'd love this section to talk about dry brushing, how we each feel about it. Do we use it in our modeling? And just try to understand the technique. Love to hear from the listeners, because I think it's one that is, I think in certain areas it causes a kind of cringe, because you think back to, and nothing against the style at that time, but in the 80s and 90s, you have, in some cases, frosted vehicles where the edges are dry brushed with titanium white. And you're like, whoa. And I think at the time, much like techniques we see today with modulation, and I'm sure 20 years from now, we'll regress and talk about modulation as some crazy fad. But I think dry brushing has had its highlight, no pun intended, had its day. But now you see it as a technique that's being kind of adapted to, dare I say, modern finishing styles. So with that, I'll pause. Maybe I'll kick it over to Scott to start us off. Tell us, how do you feel about dry brushing? Do you like it? And then I know, Scott, you had mentioned to me an artist that uses dry brushing as a primary technique. Maybe talk about him, that approach, and why has dry brushing got a bad name?
Yeah, thanks, JB. Well, I mean, first of all, I want to echo what you said. Agree that like a lot of techniques, like modulation is one that comes to mind, where if it's done really, really well, I think it makes a model look really good. But you see a lot of modulation that maybe isn't done as well, and then it really, really stands out, and then people say, well, I don't like modulation. And same thing with dry brushing. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think when you dry brush, you want to avoid the extremes, right? The whites and the blacks and the straight uncut silvers, and I think that's why a lot of people don't like it. I certainly still use it. I mean, when I'm painting an instrument panel on an aircraft, it's a great technique. I think a couple things, you mentioned an artist. You and I have been talking a lot about artist Opus. I'm sure a lot of our listeners out there are familiar with his videos, but he actually builds opacity gradually through dry brushing. And I think one of the things that he really focuses on is, not wiping your brushes onto paper towels, because that pulls all the moisture off of your brush, but actually using a textured palette to get the amount of paint to where you want it, but it's also still wet, the way that he's using the technique. And I think that's really, really effective. And the other thing is a lot of people are using dry brushing of oil paints, and I think that's also really, really effective. So I think the technique is maturing. Is that a good way to say it? But I really like it. I like it when it's done well. And I think there's a lot of times when it's a really effective tool.
No, I agree with you there. It's certainly something that has been adapted, and like you said, can be used in very specific areas to achieve great results. So, with that, Scott, I'll pause with you, and I'm going to move over to our friendly friend across the pond and get his input, because I know he's got some Artist Opus brushes that are so sweet.
Yeah, they're really good. Not been used. Too posh to use. They look nice in the box. I don't want to ruin them. Yeah, dry brushing is as soon as I saw the discussion, I was like, this will be a good one. It's really good. I use it a lot I'd like to say I use it a lot in the right places. I don't use it as a crutch, and I don't use it everywhere. I think it's, maybe this is the wrong word, but it's a technique that's abused a lot. Because it's massively either overused or used not correctly. Like you said, it's the use of titanium white on an entire model that's made it look a bit like, okay, maybe it's time for dry brushing to go into the cupboard. I kind of just want to take a few points that both you and Scott said. Yeah, like dry brushing, you're not supposed to really use like dry brush. Like he says in the videos, when you remove all the moisture, is when you get dry, chalky looking paint, and that's when it starts to look really bad. The paint's not supposed to be dry. It's just supposed to be minimal, because you can still blend with dry brushing. You can get really nice effects. You can build up opacities. You can do blends. Dry brushing isn't really just about like edge highlighting. You can do a lot with it, but I use it all the time. If say when I am doing aircraft, the cockpits, if I can use a dry brush and make everything pop, like instrument panels, dials, switches, just by dry brushing a slightly lighter gray on top of a black, that makes a massive difference. Scott mentioned dry brushing with oils. I do it with figures. If I'm painting figures, I'll base it all in acrylic, and for all my highlights that I'm trying to get smooth blends on, I'll dry brush oil paint, and then blend it. And the dry brushing kind of already blends it. So that's a technique that works really well. You're actually getting a really nice effect with very little work. And I think it's one of those that it's like, it definitely has its place. It definitely has a bad name. And I think that's just because of maybe echoes from the past, like you say, really harsh colors that are chalky being used everywhere. It's one of those, don't use every technique everywhere, not everything all at once all the time. Use it in moderation and it stands out and pops a lot more. If you do it everywhere, it gets lost in the messiness.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially with the paints. I think you can do dry brushing really well with colors that are slightly different than, I guess, the base color, lighter in a sense, but not lighter and desaturated with adding white. I think white, like you mentioned, is that moment where it just gets a little bit uncontrollable and loses a moderated effect as opposed to like, bam, there's the edge and punch you in the face. So totally echo everything that you're saying. And I appreciate your feedback. I'm going to go to our special guest, Zach. I know he doesn't paint a lot, folks, but we're going to get his feedback on this one.
I was actually just using dry brushing the other day. Thank you very much. So,
did you strip it?
No, I haven't yet. Give me a couple days. But with the little mortar that I mentioned I'm working on, I actually managed to paint something. So I got it painted, and I was looking at there's a surprising lack of photos of it online, outside of when the Marines used it, which is a whole thing that I didn't know about. Anyway, in most of the reference photos, if it's sort of a well-used one, it doesn't really chip, it seems. It looks like it just kind of gets a sort of a wear and tear gradually across all these things. So dry brushing was just the best thing to use for that. So I painted my base coat, and then I immediately took some Citadel lead belcher, which is an amazing color, by the way, for anything sort of an oily steel kind of color. If you want that, lead belcher is your go-to. And then I just dry brushed that over most of the working parts, anything that would be touched, the handles, stuff like that. And then after that, I took a dry brush of oils with Industrial Earth from Abdullah 502, which is an incredible color. And I just did a very light dry brush over my silver to sort of pull it back a little bit and to blend it with the base coat, basically. Probably would have made more sense to do it the other way, but I wanted to also kill some of the silverness that comes from a straight metallic paint. So, and then I just went back over that with a very selective, another pass of the silver, basically with straight paint, just so that I could pull, if I wanted something to be a little more bright, I would use that. But basically all of the weathering, aside from earth effects on this mortar, is all dry brushing. And yeah, every technique is basically viable, provided you do it in a way that makes sense. Because yeah, if I'd gone over it and just hit it with a dry brush of straight silver and did nothing, it would not look right. But if you use more subtle colors, and then even if like I did, where I did my dry brush and then I did another one on top of it to pull it back, which is something I'm going to be trying to do a lot more often, because I think the result of that was really cool, and it's not something I've done before. It's a very powerful technique, which is one of the problems with it is very powerful. So you have to be careful with it.
That's an interesting perspective, Zach. I hadn't really considered that, but the adding effects in I guess the additive way, where you're coming back, like I've gotten to where every time I airbrush a section on a model, I'll go back and I'll hit it with some straight Mr. Leveling thinner, because it really, really unifies and controls the paint, makes it really, really smooth. And that's an interesting technique. I hadn't really thought of that before.
I hadn't either. And then I'm just like, what if I did this? And it worked. So
yeah, that's a good call. And I'd be curious to understand, Zach, what kind of brush you're using, because I think the type of brush matters as well.
Yeah, so I used just a really cheap filbert brush. So it's one of those ones where it's like a flat brush, but it has a rounded end to it. And yeah, just like one of those. So
like a makeup brush or something like that?
Yeah, very similar kind of thing.
Okay.
So, but mine is just a cheap, got it in a pack of 27 brushes at Hobby Lobby type deal. If I had a better one, it would probably work a little nicer. I'm very tempted to get some of those Artist Opus dry brushes, because I have actually used my S series Artist Opus brushes, unlike somebody else here, and they are incredible. So I highly recommend. They're not cheap, but they are very worth the money. But yeah, just a filbert brush so that you don't get harsh edges from the corners of the brush, and then yeah, just boom.
Yeah, I think that's important too. We mentioned the Artist Opus brushes. I have one. This one's made by Ammo, but it's like their dry brush technical. It looks very similar to Artist Opus. It's got the rounded edge. The bristles are slightly feathered out, and they're actually kind of a different. I don't know if there's some sort of synthetic, or I don't know. They might even be hair, to be honest. But Anyway, I think the brush matters too. Dare I say, growing up and even earlier in modeling, my dry brushing was always done typically with like a flat brush, and it had that sharp top on it. And sometimes it gets feathered, but the bristles are still tight. And like you mentioned, Zach, I think that influences a lot on how the paint is distributed on the model. And I've found that these dry brushes, God forbid, a product that is designed to do a specific technique really works. This is a good example where that type of bristle, that type of brush, and a lot of people might think, oh, that's cliche. You don't need that. You can use any brush. Sure, you can use any brush, but I find that, dare I say, brushes designed for dry brushing, just like a Series 7 designed for technical painting, they work for what they're designed for. And I think listeners, if you give it a go, you'll find different results. It might not seem, oh, it's brush is a brush, especially for dry brushing. Not so much. It actually works really well with the type of brush you have.
Well, and dry brushing with a detail brush will absolutely nuclear holocaust it. It won't be good as a regular brush anyway, because it's a mechanical technique, right? Mm-hmm. What you're doing to the model. So yeah, you don't want to use your Winsor and Newton series brushes, that you use for your detail painting, obviously. So
yeah, and I think the quality of brush makes sense too, where I look at this ammo one and these dry brushes, again, brushes designed for dry brushing, they hold their shape as opposed to if you're using some cheap synthetics, they'll get blown out. And sometimes that's fine for dry brushing. But I just find the consistency with these brushes and how you use it. Like I not only use it in the traditional sense of like dragging it over, but you can actually like stipple it too, if that makes sense, on corners and try to replicate chip paint. So I think there's a lot of benefit to these types of brushes. And with that, I'll kick it over to Doug. I think, Doug, you might have an interesting perspective, because when I look at, Rebel fighters or even Imperial fighters, there's so many edges, and especially with those grays, I think they call and sing to dry brushing for highlighting.
Absolutely. I wouldn't pretend to be really good at dry brushing, but I like using the technique. The Rebel stuff has lots of little nooks and crannies that, especially with Bandai's, a lot of times you have to assemble before you paint, and it's tricky because their tolerances are so tight that when you paint first, sometimes you can't get the parts quite to fit right, because just that thin layer of paint gets in the way. So you assemble them, and then how do you reach some of these spots, especially in between the S-foils on the X-Wing? Dry brushing, reaching in there with a dry brush and hitting those actually works really well, because you got to be cautious with your solvents with Bandai plastic. So yeah, I really enjoy using it on stuff like that. All that raised mechanical surfaces, it really works well on. Other things that I've used it on, I practiced. I pulled it down off the shelf as you guys started talking about it. I've got a little, the red dragon that I 3D printed off of Photosmint, and it's only about 2 inches tall. And I dry brushed, that whole thing was painted. I airbrushed it black, and then I dry brushed it with different tones of red over it. And it's fun. It's not a contest winner, but it's certainly a nice little thing I like to look at. So scales and things like that on a dragon, on the edges, dry brushing works very, very well. What's really funny is you guys are talking about brushes, and until a year ago, I'd never used a dry brush. And I was over at MRS Hobbies with Scott, and he's like, "Do you have one of these?" And I said, "No." He said, "You should try it." And yeah, I need to get a lot more of them. I love working with these technique specific tools. So yeah, that's where I'm at. That's how I feel. It's fun. I enjoy dry brushing.
You heard it here, everyone. Doug, he enjoys dry brushing.
I enjoy it.
So with that, I'm going to go over to Grant. Grant, I know you do. I think you use the technique a lot, not only with some of your models, but groundwork as well. Maybe expound on that.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be around when all like Chet Payne came out with his books, and he talked about dry brushing, and of course Verlinden, like we talked about. I got away from it from a long time, and I think that was mostly due to the quality of the equipment that we had at the time, and we've talked about that a little bit. It is a skill that, one of those original skills you should have as a modeler, but for a long time it got a bad rep, because there was frosting, there was ghosting, there was really bad. It was, there was times where you were just like, I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but they take titanium white and just nail it, and at the time that was great. it was, we're showing detail and doing all this stuff, but as the years go by, it kind of works its way out. And I think the biggest thing about dry brushing has been in the last couple of years is, like you've all said, I think it's the equipment that has changed. The brushes, the design specific brushes, Artis Opus, AK, all the different other ones out there. There's so many different kinds of brushes you can use, and getting away from the flat tip, sharp edge brushes is key. Artis Opus talks about, if you ever watch his videos, which you should do, talks about how, and everybody's brought this up, but keep your paintbrush damp, not soaking wet, but damp. You won't get the ghosting. You think you got everything off of it, go back in it again. The way people are mixing dry brushing with other techniques, especially speckling for figures, I see a lot of that now. I do a lot of that with bases. I'll do a lot of dry brushing with bases, and then come in and use point specific speckling to rocks, to individual items on a base, to bring out that just a little bit more with a little bit lighter detail. And that's where I really see myself in the last couple of years using dry brushing the most, is in bases. I mean, because you can bring out a tone of a ground so much better with dry brushing, as long as you keep it that ghosting away from it, and you use the right, in my opinion, it doesn't mean you have to go out and buy these kind of brushes, but in my opinion, that you use the right kind of brush. There's oil brush painters out there that use all kinds, that have the brushes we're talking about. You can get 1,000 of them, well, not 1,000, but you can get a lot of them on Amazon for a very cheap price. That's what it is. I think it ran its course for a long time, and then it went away. And then I think, it came back, but when it came back, the reason it came back was because of the introduction of better quality of equipment. The equipment basically, in my opinion, saved it. And I think there's a lot of it has to go to our Artis Opus. He did a lot of work with that. He did a lot of designing of the original. So it goes to him too, that what he did. It's a great technique. I like to mix, sorry to make a short answer long, but I like to make dry brushing on figure capes and stuff like that. I'll hit it with a really light dry brush, and then I'll come in and edge highlight where I want it more striking or show folds more. So I think it's became more of a final technique to use on your model, and now it's just a part of the repertoire of whatever we all do in the process of painting a model. So instead of the last thing, it's now probably in the middle, and we can use it to develop.
That's a good point, Grant. And then I want to go back to what John said. Sometimes we're not just after a detail highlight on an edge. I think dry brushing really, really works for techniques like abrasion. Like, we all chip our models, right? If you're an armor builder, especially, but chipping's not the only environmental effect or wear. When a vehicle is being mounted in a certain place, you can use dry brushing to show, the abrasion from the crew's boots and, the clothing that's being used as well to, show where that vehicle is being kind of worn in a different way than a chip.
Definitely. I mean, like you're saying, abrasion or wearing a paint, or, just fading of paint on the highlighted areas on the top of a vehicle, where the sun is going to hit the vehicle the most. You could use dry brushing to show fading of paint very easily. And it does. And like I said, if you mix it with different, methods or techniques like stippling and all these other things, you get, fantastic models like JB and Zach produce. I mean, you get these, works of art. And it's the thing is that, like I said, I think it was, for the longest time, it was the last thing you did on your model before you put the model. You were done with the model was dry brush. I got to dry brush it and I'm done. At least what I can remember. And now I think like it's in the middle. It's like, okay, it's part of the technique and in the process of where you get to that final model. I think it's more than, it has aged like a fine wine. I think, I guess you could say it has found its spot. It's never going to go away. I don't care what anybody says. It's going to be there forever. And it's just a good technique. I think now with the technology and the improvements in paint and the brushes and all of that, I think it's found its spot, and it's just going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah, I'll just echo along the lines of, paint abrasion and wear and tear. I think when traditional dry brushing, maybe, feel free to chime in if you disagree. Traditional dry brushing was all around edge highlighting and, making these things pop. I think the way I use it is actually the reverse. And it has become a very powerful tool to show abrasion and worn paint, especially on the edges of a vehicle. Sergeant York is a perfect example. After I've done chipping with a lighter green to show, some paint abrasion, that raw steel or that dirt kind of grimy edge, it's not really a highlight, but I'm using like a chipped color paint, a dark brownish black, and I'm dry brushing the edges. I'm dry brushing areas around the hatch. I'm doing a little stippling with that dry brush to recreate some chip paint effects. And I think that's incredibly powerful, where you're dry brushing with a dark color as opposed to a light color. And this can be paired as well with a lighter wash. So almost flip the script. So, traditionally you're like, oh, wash, I need to use dark colors to accentuate details, and I need to use dry brushing to make those details pop. On certain vehicles, I think OD and darker vehicles is a great example. Flip the script, do a lighter wash with maybe a medium gray or a desaturated dust, and then dry brush a darker brown on top of it. The results you get are quite amazing. I think, got to credit Spencer Pollard. He does this with some of his models. Other people do it. It is a very powerful tool, and you wouldn't think it works, but holy cow, it creates an effect that, it's incredibly realistic, I think. And it's very straightforward. You can, if you're looking for simple chipping and you don't want to spend 40 hours a la night shift on a model, you can use this reverse dry brushing in effect to accomplish those techniques.
Yeah, I agree. I think Spud's another one that does a really good job, bouncing those techniques off of each other with his darker. And I agree. It looks so much better on a darker, like you said, an OD, a darker modern kind of colors, Sherman's, of course. But yeah, when you bounce, like you said, you flip the switch on it and it pops it, and it really it's finding its place.
Yeah, and really accentuating a good call is the Sherman's is that cast texture on the turret. You look at Mike Rinaldi using reverse dry brushing. Actually, we haven't even talked about this, but using dry brushing to remove the paint, where you're using a solvent to remove the top layer of paint. And I think for a Sherman in that case, you can do two things. You can use solvent to dry brush away the top of your paint color and burnish it down to a darker color, or you can just dry brush a darker color on top of it. So I think there's two methods there with dry brushing. One is literally setting it, but you're achieving the same type of effect. And I think it's a technique, as you mentioned, as we have all mentioned, has lost its way, but I think it's came back in certain forms. And I'd be curious to get anyone's feedback on this in terms of dry brushing. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say the gaming community has kept this technique alive and has evolved it to a degree where us scale modelers are starting to use it again, just based on their, they are steadfast supporters of this. They've done it a lot with terrain, a lot of different techniques. I think that community has a lot to thank. And I believe Artis Opus comes from that community as well. So a lot of crossover, but major kudos to that side of the hobby.
I agree. I think that the way to get figures on a table quickly was dry brushing when in the artist or in the wargaming community. So they stayed with it. They generated products that were better for the process. And you're right. I think they had a lot to do it. There's a thing called Slapshot. It's where it's just basically really quickly putting neutral colors on a figure or whatever you're doing, and then just coming in and hitting it again with a dry brush. And we've talked. There's a lot of famous people that do that, and they do very good work. It's fantastic work, some of this. But yeah, you're right. I think the gaming community has a lot of cred to bring that, but they kept that dry brushing alive.
Yeah, well, certainly this was a great discussion. I think it went a lot better than I expected. I've certainly learned a little bit, and I think what we can also take away is everybody uses it in some way, shape, or form. And with that, I'd love to hear the community as well. If you're using dry brushing, if you support it, again, it goes back. If you love it, like it, love it, hate it. Tell us your thoughts, and even show a picture of the results. I think that's powerful too, because pictures tell more than just words. So with that, we're going to go over to our next segment. I'm going to kick it over to Scott and tell us what we got, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, JB. It's time for us to talk about some models that we all kind of liked in our Plastic Posse group. If you're not a member of our group, please join on Facebook. We've got, 5,000 members and counting. It's great. You're going to see some amazing work over there, and I think that'll be highlighted by what we all discuss. So, Grant, let's start with you. What models this week over on the Posse group kind of caught your eye?
Well, I don't know if it was this week, but it was during the holidays. Alex Clark, a good friend of the posse, and I did bring him up before, but he did a 1/144 scale ME 109. When I first saw it, I could have swore it was 148, and I know Alex does a lot of 1/72, so I figured it was 1/72, and I'm looking at it, and it goes down to 1/144. It's amazing. The detail. I don't know how he works in scales like that. I have no idea. I mean, we talked to him, Scott, and we JV, we all, when we did the interview, he said he'd lose parts in his fingernails on the top of his fingernail. It's just
Well, and
crazy.
the context, Grant, to your point, that post is actually about focus stacking. Focus stacking a 1/144 scale BF 109. It's amazing, but he shows the results, and it's just really effective.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and Alex is a world renowned, famous modeler, especially in the smaller scales. Got all his books, like the rest of us, most of us, the rest of us, and I just seeing his stuff and what he can do with that kind of scale is just phenomenal. And focus stacking, like you said, the M109 is a perfect little kit. And you look at it, and I could have swore it was 148. I swear to God, I was like, I didn't know he jumped up to scale.
Yeah, he'll do that to you. He's pretty amazing. Well, let's go over to JB. JB, anything catch your eye?
Yeah, a lot of stuff online, but I definitely want to give a shout out to a person who regularly contributes online to a print, and that is John Hale. His M4A3 Thunderbolt 6 Creighton Abrams vehicle that he took into Bastogne is actually on the cover of the latest issue, the January 2024 issue of Military Modelcraft International. It's a fantastic piece that we've seen posted in the posse before, and to see it on the cover of a mag certainly, is well deserved. And John's a fantastic modeler. He's another Sherman-holic. When we think of Sherman consigliaries, we go with Jackson, John Hale, a few other folks online, but definitely want to recognize John and all of his stellar work. I'm going to highlight this magazine too. TJ Sherman's in it from the SMC show report. We got Ilya Yutin here and a few other familiar names. And at the end of it is John Murphy Spud's interview where he talks about, his life, scale modeling, a lot of history about him personally. So definitely pick up this issue. You can grab it on Pocket Mags, but I know this is a social media shout out, but I got to highlight one of our social media contributors in print. Always really cool. And special shout out also to David Grummett for running such a fine mag. So kudos to you, John. Keep it up. Love the article. I got to read it again just because it's so it's just really, really good.
Nice. I also wanted to highlight our missing compadre. You talk about Shermanaholics, TJ definitely fits into that, but his new Machine and Krieger, Grant and John, you'll know which exact model it is. You speak it more than I do, but that scheme, when he got the markings on, man, that thing just kind of came alive.
Oh, the one that's painted like how Brian Krieger paints his stuff? That one?
That would be the one.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. It's the two-legged, I think it's a basic off a Croat chassis or something for that for the short.
Yeah, it's the Pack Croat. Yeah.
Pack Croat, yeah.
It's a rare kit, and he's done a stellar job. It's stellar because he copied Brian's scheme. But, hey, good for TJ. Good work.
Way to reach out there.
Let's move over to Doug. Doug, what caught your eye?
Well, I'm going to talk about Martin Holst. He did a Bandai ATST, and he fell victim to something that many of us that have built Bandai kits have, and he got some solvent in the leg, one of the leg joints where it attaches to the body of the machine, and it failed. So he lost his that joint. And I don't know if anybody's ever worked with Bandai plastics or had that problem with it. It doesn't just break. It gets so soft that it's mushy, and then it comes apart, and getting it back together is an absolute nightmare. And he was able to salvage this thing. He's got it back together. It looks like it's supporting its weight. He's not done with the project. It looks like it's going to be part of a vignette, but he's done a really cool paint scheme on it. A couple of rusty red panels that are very, very worn on it. Really nice otherwise overall. But I'm just super impressed with the fact that he was able to salvage this thing, that he was able to take what is kind of a nightmare when you're building a model and turning it into something fine. I know it's not what he was hoping for, but hey, thumbs up. I've done it too. I did it to the same part of the same kit before, and all I did was salvage another part from another kit so that I could finish it. I didn't do what he did and actually make that part work. So I'm really impressed. I mean, first of all, I love what he's done with it, and I really love that he was able to rescue it. So good for him. Way to go, Martin.
Doug, you build a lot of those kits. I think some of those, I don't know how many grades of plastic that Bandai uses, but it seems like some of their kits are a lot more susceptible to this than others. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that or.
I don't know if it's the kits themselves. I think all the plastic has this flaw. But what it is, if you use something with solvent on, if you want to use a wash or something, you can put a wash over just about anything. You have to put it on very thin and get it off pretty quick. Like get the carrier medium, the solvent off as quick as you can. If it sits and pools in a joint, that's what gets you. If it gets in between two pieces and just can sit there for more than a few seconds, it's going to eat that plastic. It's going to soften it up and really do some damage.
Yeah, for sure. It's happened to me during the Slave one. And I, like you said, I had to go get another kit to kind of bring that back. Lesson learned. You know, like you said, as long as you keep it out of the joints and try to keep the thinner to a minimum, I think it seems like it's going to work out for you. And agree with you. Shout out to Martin for staying with it. And I really like the paint work he's doing on that chicken walker.
Yeah, it's cool. And if you have a nice coat of paint over it, it'll protect it too. That's one of the, you paint it and then you're gonna dirty it up and you're gonna use those solvents. And that's one of the things that protects plastic as well. But you're not gonna get that protection in the joints. So yeah.
I think another thing too is you have to really watch what solvents you use, the strength of those solvents. I use Michelangelo or whatever they call the artist one, and it's a lot less damage than like your normal thinner because it's not as strong.
Cool.
That's just something to remember. Look for a thinner or look for a less strong thinner, and that will help. Because I've had like R2s just basically melt on me. It's just, you break one joint and then you try and fix that joint, the next joint breaks. And, it's just kind of one of those things. So just be careful.
All right, let's go over to Shizzle Dizzle. Zach, anything caught your eye?
Yes. So Stephen Reed has also been working on something for the Wilder Group build. He has created a lovely monstrosity of an IS-2. I don't remember if this is something that is based on like drawings or what, but he took the front of an IS-2, a Tamiya kit, and scratch built like a pike nose, like an IS-3 would have onto it. And it is such a cool look because, the IS-3 is just cool looking anyway, but it works really well on the IS-2. And then he's slapped one of those big old, one of the Wilder turrets on there. And it just looks mean. He's got like full scratch built brass fenders. I think he's also putting a mine plow, or he's got the attachment points for it. So I guess I kind of accidentally stole his idea that I forgot about. But I've also stolen half of his stuff at this point for my build anyway. So I guess it works out. But yeah, it's just such a cool looking design that he did. And it's not an easy thing to scratch build all these angles either. So, it is very impressive. Like he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 different plates that all match at a weird, funky angle. It's pretty cool. And I think he's got it in paint now as well, which of course looks good. He does 4BO very well.
Yeah, he's no Ian Bonner, but he's dang close. No, Steven is great with the Russian armor. I agree with you. That's a great choice. Let's go over to Jensen, who looks very warm and snuggy. Anything catch your eye, my friend?
Certainly did. It's a P38J engine by Hansa Baranek. Now it's a 3D print P38J engine in 1/48. It's going to be released in February. They also go by 48 scale hanger on Instagram. This is just really nice. You would not be able to tell this thing is 3D printed with how smooth and how detailed it is. It looks just sublime. It's really pretty, really detailed. It's got all the plumbing, all the parts. It's literally as realistic as it can be. And if you go over to their Instagram, they have just incredible work. They detail engines really well. The finishes on models are fantastic. Yeah, just all around really, really good modeling. And it stood out, because I do love an engine. And as soon as I saw it and realized it was 3D printed and you can buy it, and I imagine be able to maybe print it yourself. Yeah, it just caught my eye straight away. Really, really nice, really, really pretty.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's the piping and, like you said, everything just looks really, really terrific. I'm wondering, though, I'll bet that's going to be a bit of work to get that all mounted in that boom. But yeah, it's a gorgeous bit of work.
Oh, yes.
All right, I'm going to go with one of our friends from the Four Corners. Kev Smith has been publishing photos of his 1/16 scale SDKFZ 251 Hanomag, and he's been focusing on the interior. Man, that looks really, really good. He's using earth tones and also the Dunkelgelb really effectively together. And it's almost a kit in and of itself because the the 251 is open top, but I don't know if you guys have seen it, but just a beautiful piece of work.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, Kev's an artist. Kev's awesome. Really missed him at SMC this year. His work's astounding. And I've been talking to him a little bit about that build. Makes me want to keep mine in the box because he is crushing it. We talked about Kev before on the show. I think from that earthy tone perspective in scale modeling, that warmish, brownish tone, really his pieces show the environment really well. And his examples of his work's fantastic. And I'm curious to see if he adds any figures to it or just does a straight vehicle, because he typically does a little scene with some figures and it all just really blends well together. So awesome work. And I'm saving every image for when I get back to mine.
Kev does a technique that I wish I knew how, but I can't. It's where something is dry and dusty and dirty and gets saturated with like an oil spill and it gets absorbed by the dust. I don't know how he does it, but he does it damn well.
Oh, so like he's combining like a dry pigment with like some kind of an enamel, or
don't know what he does.
Don't know. It's magic. It's
or
magic.
it's black. It's black magic.
It's black magic.
Yeah.
Well, that's it's a beautiful model. So well done, obviously, Kev, and really, really inspiring. All right. Well, I think that's all of us. Let's move over to Jensen and Zach for a very, very full slate of upcoming model shows and events. If you have a model show that you would like us to talk about on the Posse, you can send that to plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you, Scott. So yeah, this is quite a comprehensive list. So we'll just try and get through them as quick as possible. So first we have the 3rd annual Winter Blitz show, which will be held on Saturday, January the 20th at the Museum of the American GI in College Station, Texas. More details can be found at www.winterblitz.com. Then we have Model Fiesta 42, which will be held on Saturday, February 10th at the New Braunfels Convention Center in New Braunfels, Texas. This year's theme is all things British. More details are available at modelfiesta.com. Mid-Michigan Model Makers presents the 4M Mayhem Show on Saturday, February 3rd. Saginaw Valley State University from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Gundams are welcome, and this year's theme is Original TV Series. For more information, check out www.midmichiganmodelmakers.com.
All right, next up we have the Fresno IPMS Scale Modelers present the Sprue Bowl Post Super Bowl Bash on February 17th at Fresno City College's main cafeteria. Doors open at 9 a.m. and general admission is free. You can check out more details over at the Fresno IPMS Facebook page. Our friend Rick Cooper is one of the team for this. Good luck, guys. Then we have the 2024 Model Mania Show, which will be held on February 17th and 18th at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, Washington. Check out the details on Facebook on the Northwest Scale Modelers page. Next up is WriteCon, made in Ohio. This will be held on March 23rd and 24th at the University of Dayton. Doors open both days at 9 a.m. and more details can be found at ipmsdayton.com. Next up, we have HeritageCon 15, which will be held at the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum on Sunday, March 24th from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. More details at the IPMS Hamilton Canadian Warplane Heritage Modelers Club Facebook page. Then there is Commies Fest 2024, Egg Planes and Chibis. This will be held on Saturday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. at the Wings Over the Rockies Exploration of Flight Center.
The BuffCon 39 Scale Model Show will be held Sunday, April 7th at the Knights Event Center in Buffalo, New York. Doors open at 9 a.m. and will feature a bunch of new categories for juniors and also new categories for Gundam, Gunpla, and Warhammer. You can contact Jeff Keenan for more details or go to www.ipmsniagarafrontier.com. The AMPS 2024 International Convention will be held April 11th till the 13th at the Century Center in South Bend, Indiana. Details at www.amps-armor.org. The Tulsa Modelers Forum and the Tulsa Miniature Motorworks are proud to present the Route 66 Model Expo. The show will be held Saturday, April 20th at Park Church of Christ in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Check with Casey Gray on Facebook for more details.
Then there is the Houston Model Mania Show, which will be held May 4th at the Stafford Center in Stafford, Texas, and has dual themes for 2024. May the 4th be with you and adversaries. They will have a great vendor area, an awesome facility, and a special Subarashi Mecha award for Best Mecha. They are also implementing a gold, silver, bronze system for this show. The Best of the West Model Show and Convention will be held Saturday, May 18th at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. This show is put on by a group of 5 different modeling clubs and runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sounds like a lot of fun. Contact Jay Bergeron on Facebook for more details. Also, on May 18th, the Silver Wings Club in Sacramento present SilverCon 2024. This year's theme is 1944. Doors open at 9 a.m., and the show will be held at the Town and Country Lutheran Church in Sacramento, California. For more details, check out IPMS Silver Wings on Facebook or contact Drew Savage.
All right. Thanks, you guys. A great job on a huge list of shows. Well, let's move on to our main feature now. We had a chance to catch up with a good friend of ours, Mark Bradley, and talk to him recently. That's a lot of fun. Besides being a lifelong Michigan fan and somebody who is undoubtedly a happier guy today than he was a week ago, we got to talk about Mark's hobbies, which not only includes scale modeling, but making some amazing barbecue with his wife, Jamie, and a whole bunch of other topics. So sit back and enjoy. Welcome into the Plastic Posse podcast. Joining me today are John Bonani. JB, how you doing?
I'm absolutely fantastic.
And also Doug Smith. Doug, how are you doing today?
I'm good, but 9:00 in the morning is kind of early for me on a Sunday. So yeah, I'm good though.
That's good. And then also joining us is our guest of honor, the man in the hot seat, owner and purveyor of Bradley Hobbies Incorporated, Mr. Mark Bradley. How you doing, Mark?
Good. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it. It's an honor.
No problem. For those of you that might not know, Mark is a renowned modeler who does all kinds of different genres, and we'll get into that. And he also is a great dedicated hobbyist who gets into lots and lots of different things. So, Mark, let's get started with just tell us a little bit about who Mark is and how he got into the hobby.
Well, I was fortunate that my parents owned a hobby shop when I was born north of Detroit up in a city called Mount Clemens. They owned All American Hobbies in the early 70s. So I spent basically the first 5 years of my life on the countertop at the hobby shop, building everything from snap kits to doing RC stuff. So, I mean, there's 8mm photo of me on a picnic table with an old Tester's control line spinning around that my grandfather took. I was like 4 years old, and I was like, yeah. I have no memory of that. But started doing that as a kid, continued on through childhood, kept building kits, stuff like that. My folks closed the hobby shop in about 77. Continued on, like I said, doing kits as a kid, through teens and all that. Unlike some folks, that kind of got out of it when they found girls and cars and all that, I continued. I was always encouraged by both my stepdad, dad, if you will, and then as my mother and my grandparents and stuff always, wanted me to continue on and encouraged it. Didn't necessarily understand it, but they, hey, keep going. And then I came out to Colorado in about 92 and basically just continued on. I had joined a local IPMS chapter here, been part of that for a long time, and then just kept doing aircraft. And then I got into figures in the aircraft and then transitioned to armor a little bit, and then did miniatures, got into 40K because of a friend of mine, and started doing Space Marines and playing the games and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of do a lot of things and been doing it since.
You've got an ally that a lot of people kind of, I think, wish they had, and that's obviously Mrs. Bradley, Jamie. Talk to us a little bit about what it's like to have a partner who's, into the hobby almost as much as you are, and, the advantages and benefits of kind of working together on your hobby.
Yeah, my wife and I, we've been together 10 years, Jamie, and we had met playing video games, World of Warcraft specifically, and then she took the chance and came out here, and we've been together since. in 2013, she came out in April 2013. And so that's later that year is when they had the IPMS Nats in Loveland. And so we went up there. It's just literally 10 miles up the road for us. Went up there, introduced her some friends of mine and stuff like that. She had never been around scale modeling, never done any of that. She did have, Christmas villages and stuff like that. And she would do little dioramas and stuff around for Christmas and things, and had various collectibles and stuff, but hadn't really been exposed to it. She went to Nats with me. And a friend of mine who was more of a mentor named Kevin Sudarth, people called him Suds, a longtime member around here. He took her, he's like, yeah, thank you. I'm going to take her and show her the real world. And went off, and she fell in love with Tigers, tanks, like German armor and stuff. I've never heard anybody refer to a Tiger 1 tank as cute except her, or before her, I should say. But she's really been supportive of it. At that show, she went and bought, the couple of kits of her own and stuff, and did that. And then also with the figures and stuff, she started reading up on Warhammer and stuff. She fell in love with the orcs just because they're kind of like a Mad Max vibe. They're a bit of the comedy group of Warhammer, and so she just had a lot of fun with it and stuff. The challenge is that she's very supportive of the hobby, but if I bring home, say, a new armor kit, and she'll look at it. I'll go to Copar, like with you guys and stuff or whatever, or Screw Brothers. I'll get that kit, and if she likes it, the risk is she goes, "Where's yours?" And I'm like, the first time that happened, I thought she was kidding, and no, she wasn't kidding. She's like, "This is mine. I have a shelf in the basement." She set up, so she did the whole Bradley Hobbies basement. She took everything out of boxes that I had in storage boxes and stuff like that, set it all up on display shelves and stuff like this. And she's carved out a section for her. And so she takes the kit and she'll go over and she'll put it on the shelf for her. And I'm like, what just happened? She's like, "You need to go order another kit for you." And I'm like,
"This is mine now."
Are you serious? Yeah, that's exactly it. I was like, I was like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. I'm like, what just happened? That type of thing. And it's been great. She's very supportive of it. She will tell me, "Go down to the bench." I mean, this whole setup I have here with the workbench and stuff, she was like, "You know what? Let's go through." And she rearranged it during COVID. So, she went through and set up her workspace, my workspace. We got all the storage stuff from Hobby Zone and did all that and just been great. Like I said, it's cool. It's fantastic because she's very supportive of it. She will tell me, like last night, "Go down and join the Zoom call with you guys and hang out. Go enjoy your friends. Hang out." She's always pushing me to, one, it's not like, "Get out of my hair, leave me alone," that type of thing. It's go enjoy it. Go have fun. Okay. So
I also think you have a lot to learn from her, because when I've been into your workshop, her bench is much cleaner than yours.
We have a thing that it calls "we're number one." It usually starts with the middle finger. So
It only hurts when it's true, right, Mark?
It's true. Absolutely. So like, when we had you guys over for dinner in November after the show up in Loveland, I went through the week before and I literally cleaned everything up. She was like, "Wow, really? You're organizing stuff?" I mean, there's a bench that she has for little table she had set up for her scrapbooking and stuff. And yeah, I went through and had to clean it up because I'm like, I got to make a good impression for the boys.
You didn't need to make an impression. The barbecue did that for you, but we can get into that a little bit later. But Ian, just kind of still staying with the subject of, Jamie, it's just awesome how you guys have your benches facing each other so that not only can you both work on your hobbies, but you can sit there and kind of have your own Zoom call right in your own basement, right? You can sit there and have a conversation and work with somebody. It's just something that a lot of modelers don't have.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I have a wife that supports me, and I support her 100% in all her hobbies, as you'll find out. It's been, the thing with COVID, when that came out, that's when we set up the whole Zoom station and stuff like that, because the clubs and our friends and stuff like this, we were having those Zoom calls on a bi-weekly or weekly basis. And so we went through and reconfigured everything and did all this so that, we could participate in those activities and could continue on with the hobby and do, stuff like we have been. And I've been very fortunate. That's for sure.
So yeah, Mark, fantastic. I love Jamie. I think, as Scott pointed out, it's not just you going to a show, it's both of you. And I think that companionship is incredibly important. When I think about that relationship and maybe, maybe this is a higher level question and unique for a scale modeling podcast. But what do you think the key is to success in that? How do you find that you guys work so well together? You support each other a lot. Like what, if you could give our listeners a takeaway, like what makes that so successful for you and her? Because I think that's incredibly important to share. I think, a lot of people, want to do things together with their spouse. And if scale modeling is an opportunity, I think it'd be great to learn more about what makes your relationship so great. Because we have a lot of friends where their wives will stop in and say hi during the Zoom sessions. And I think what you have with Jamie is something very special. So, what's a key to success in that?
Great question I hadn't prepared for. How do I explain? So, well, to be honest, though, for us, we were both in our early 40s, I should say, when we got together. So it's been 10 years. I'll be 52, 53 this year. And you got two independent people that are like porcupines trying to kiss, right? Where we're used to doing I had my hobbies. She has her things and her stuff. She loves to cook. That's her. I didn't get this way by, saying, no, please, not another bite. Okay. So for us, it's been, when we got together, we basically started just, we weren't like in our 20s or anything like that. So we already had established lives, ways of operating, independent, stuff like that. It's a conscious effort every day to make sure that I support her 100%. She supports me 100%, regardless of what we're doing. There's times where, because of that independence, we'll play devil's advocate with one another. It's like, there's times where it's like, well, I'm going to go to Colpar and head the hobby shop. She's like, yeah, go to Colpar, get out of my hair. Yes, ma'am. So totally times like that now, but I'm going to pay for this. Yeah, thanks. She's 100% supportive. It's funny. She will, I support her in the cooking and the different stuff and all that. She's captain. She leads the team. She leads the when we're doing that, her hobbies and stuff, she leads, I follow. When we're doing stuff related to my hobbies, I lead, she'll follow. That type of thing. We'll play off of each other like that. We started going Nats during, really going during Vegas, right? Because after COVID, we wanted out of the house. There, it was like we started just basically supporting it. During the vendor's room, there was my crates with the stuff that I'd picked up, and then there were her crates with the stuff she picked up. So it's 100%, we're on, supportive of one another. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think it's just, honestly, you got a bunch of guys here that just really admire what you have, and it's great because, like you mentioned, Jamie's a lot of fun. She doesn't just sort of, no, you go do that. A lot of times she's right there by your side, whether it's at a model show or in the basement / hobby room. Yes, Bradley Hobbies. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that she'll come down and sit at her bench and stuff and tinker with her stuff and all that while I'm doing it. When we're setting this up, the storage and all the, the stuff on the workspace, I wanted to make sure that we had an opening in the center so that we could see each other and have that conversation. I have a bit of a hearing disability, and actually my left ear only has about 20% hearing. And so I tend to have to, when people are talking or I'm talking to people or something like that, I tend to have to see the face. So when she's talking to me, I got to kind of read lips, if you will, that type of thing, or make sure I understand what's going on. So it's important for me to see my wife across from me. It's, doing hobbies and doing stuff and all that, and we're having fun. The funny thing is that, like all marriages and stuff, is that, there's definitely give and take. But I've always recommended, when she was getting into the hobby, to start painting and stuff like this, like go talk to a couple other people other than me on how to do hobbies. I'm not the best teacher. I'm also her husband. So there's that little different dynamic. And, in some cases, we're not necessarily the best relationships. It's like if our spouse is telling us something, hey, you're like, okay, do I tune it out or not? That type of thing. No, stop teasing.
Well, you mentioned that Jamie likes to cook, and we all kind of have experienced it. When we came to the High Plains show in November, she didn't come to the show because she was tending the grills. Honestly, some of the best barbecue I've had. was at your home. And tell us, how did you guys get into that? And is it more her than you, or do you get to participate in that?
It's actually 50-50. We got into it back around 2014. We were having here at the house, when I bought the house in 2008, before we got together, it just had one of those little 8x8 builder pads for patio, right? Little square. And so in 2014, we went through and wanted to basically extend the patio and do it all across the back of the house. So we had plenty, a lot of room. One of the things we did was we had, just before we started doing that activity, was we bought an upright vertical smoker, like a small propane smoker that you got from one of the DIY stores, and started playing with that. And we spent that entire summer just doing spare ribs, St. Louis style ribs. We tried the different rubs and sauces and stuff like that. And this is where it came in for her. More or less her hobby was she started to tinker in the kitchen with her own rubs and her own sauces. So during that first summer, all we cooked every weekend was ribs. And we had sent over metal trays with A and, B on them to our neighbors. And we'd like, okay, here's some meat, try it. Here's some ribs and this and that. Try it. Tell us what you think. Our neighbors were fantastic. Yeah, they love this.
Your poor neighbors.
Yeah, seriously. To this day, they're like, what do you got?
I am available for beta test.
Seriously. And we spent the entire summer going through it, and some were too salty, this and that. And then when she started tinkering with her own rub and then the sauce, it was like, towards about August and September, it was A or B. One of them was some store-bought one, and then another one was our homemade one. And she kept tweaking it. And that was through 2014. And then in 15, we switched to brisket. Pretty much had the beta testing there for the latter few months. They kept coming back to liking our individual rub and sauce combination for the stuff that she did. So she's like, okay, we've got that. Next year we did brisket every weekend, or pretty much every weekend we were doing briskets. I was like, okay. And then around 2000, and we just kept doing that through the different, working on the different meats, like chicken, not so much, but a little bit here and there. But we just kind of kept working through it until she figured out her own rubs and sauces and stuff like that what we like. And then we did a practice cook in 2021, local barbecue supply store up here. And they had a practice cook. And we went up, we went over to the store, never saw it before, had breakfast and came out, and there's a bunch of smokers out in a little shopping center. We're like, oh, okay. And then we went over there, and they had talked to Jamie about a practice cook, which is you cook all 4 meats just like a KCBS contest. I'm like, okay, so you start on Friday night, you're doing brisket, pork shoulder, ribs, and chicken. I'm like, okay. And then we went and did, but the kicker was it was run like a normal model contest. You just turn your stuff in and you get your prize or whatever. But this one, you actually sat down with the judges for 10 minutes, and while they judged your food, and you sat there and they said, well, this is too salty, this is too sweet, or they gave you the critique. So
would you say that's feedback?
Oh, yes. Trust me.
Oh, man.
I hate that word.
I hate that word.
Sorry. Yes, it was feedback. We were feeding them and they were giving it back to us. I get your reference though. But yeah, so we did that, and then kind of took all the advice and feedback to heart, and went back and adjusted things and stuff like that. Now, what's funny is that the barbecue supply place about 6 weeks later had a rib contest, and Jamie's like, I want to enter it. Okay. We showed up we signed up, showed up, did all that. And we had low expectations. I mean, and we didn't expect anything, figured we'd be last or whatever. And they went through all the names, and we were just sitting there looking at each other and stuff. I'm like, we kind of figured it would be like this. And then they called her name for grand champion. And I was like, I can't repeat because it's a family show what I said, but clearly on the video, it's holy. And she won the smoker that we actually cooked the dinner on, and that's where we added that to the pellet smoker and stuff. So,
well, we all really appreciate how much time that you all put into tweaking it and all that. You gave sent us home with samples of some of your rubs. I've used them both. I think they're fantastic. I do recommend if anybody gets a chance, they should get in touch. How would they get in touch with you? Do you have are you shipping stuff out? Do you have a little business going with the rubs?
We have a little business with the rubs. We started it up basically a little over a year ago, but it's mostly it's a cottage industry. So it's spices, sweets, and meats. And here in Colorado, we can only do it like I put it in your hand type thing. We can't ship because we're still going through figuring, food products there's a lot of regulations around it with the FDA and certifications and testing and stuff like that. So we're saving up to get a lot of that stuff done that would allow us to, in some cases, the testing's like $1,200 to $1,500 a SKU. So each rub there's $1,500, that type of thing. So it's taken a little bit of money to go from there. So that's why if I put it in your hand here in Colorado, that's it. I can't ship it out of state. We don't have a website to do it. It's mostly at shows like the competition shows that we do, or word of mouth, like with you guys, that type of stuff, because we do fall under the cottage industry at this time. So next time you guys want some, next time you're here in March, there we go. We'll hook you up.
Beta testing.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, we hope you have a table at Commies Fest again. That worked out really well last year, I think, for you.
We'll see how that goes. We're talking about it, possibly doing that in March again. We had pretty good reception with that. We sent you guys home with the leftovers, so
it paired very well with the Tankcraft cutting mats, the Tamiya products, and the funfetti cake. So I don't think you can get a better pairing there.
Yeah, they did well. Thanks. We did really good at that show. She got a lot of positive comments and stuff because she gave out some samples and stuff. So did really well, but hopefully we'll see how it goes with March and stuff. So we're still planning for this year, what we're going to be doing and attending. So I
am planning on being there. So if somebody wants to find Mark Bradley, you have a Facebook page they can find you at?
I do. I started for modeling and for the model hobbies and stuff like that. I basically started a Facebook page called Glue, Sprue, and Barbecue. That's where I'll be posting all scale models, miniatures, all hobby-related activities, including pictures of our barbecue. On that, for the barbecue rubs and sauces, we have a Facebook page called Spices, Sweets, and Meats. That's Jamie's company with the rubs and sauces and stuff, and we post pictures and stuff there. Pictures
don't do it justice, folks.
Yeah, when we did the hobby thing, Glue, Sprue, and Barbecue, I was like, how do I incorporate that in the... Seriously, we had a whiteboard on the fridge, and it's kind of like coming up with band names. Sometimes you say things, you're like, oh, that'd be a perfect band name, and you write it down. That's what we were doing. We were putting names up both for the Spices, Sweets, and Meats, but also when I was like doing the hobby related, Facebook page. And it wanted to include all of them, the barbecue, the scale models, the figures and stuff like that. I left the RC out of it, but yeah. That's just a summertime hobby for me.
So that's a good lead in, Mark. I think, when I was over your house, I noticed 3 major hobbies. There's the scale modeling, there's the wargaming, which you have a whole, not even an army, but I think the whole NATO force behind you in terms of
our armies with an S.
Armies with an S. And then you have your own private air force in the corner with a 1/6 scale B-25.
That is I think 1/10, something like that. It's the top flight B-25 that came out years ago, around 2008 timeframe. It's got a couple of OS-55 AX engines on it that are nitromethane stuff. It was actually built by a good friend of the club, and he wanted it to go to a good home when he got stage 4 cancer, and so he came up and he's like, yeah, I'm going to sell this to you and only you, and he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It's like $200. I'm like, what? So,
$200 for that?
$200.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, turnkey, ready to go.
What's the wingspan on that? 6-7 feet?
Thereabouts. I think it's about 80 some inches, 82 inches, 88 inches, something like that. Off of it.
Well, if a small dog or cat ever needs a ride anywhere, you can just put them in that and they can go on a mission. So, with all these hobbies, Mark, you talked about balance, maybe time of the year, maybe talk a little bit about that. Seems like you fly during the summer and maybe scale model war game at other times.
Pretty much. My folks, we had the hobby shop as a kid. And so scale modeling's been there always. that type of thing. I got back around 2006. I got back into RC airplanes, bought the first trainer and stuff, and been in it since. But it's mostly here in Colorado. We've got so much sunshine, right? So usually from about April to October, I'll at least one weekend or so mostly try to get out and fly an RC, fly at the airfield. So my biological father lives here in Colorado, and it's kind of like our hobby that we do together, because he when he had the hobby shop, that's where he was in the RC airplanes and stuff. So that's kind of the thing that we do together. Scale modeling, I do in figures. I'll build anytime I'm not flying during the summers, and throughout the winters. That's the hobby for me, because I work from home. 15 feet away is my work desk upstairs in the rec room, and I can always come down here, sit down, get lunch, have my lunch or something like that, or in between whatever I happen to be doing, I can come down here, spend a little bit of 5-10 minutes or whatever, and tinker with the models, whether it's building and stuff. And that's partly why I have so many Shelf of Doom kits, is because I just start something and have a hard time finishing it, but it'll get done. But that's kind of what I end up doing, is throughout that is tinker with that and do that part. But yeah.
And when did you take the plunge into 3D printing?
January 21. I've been looking for it for a while and looking at it and stuff, kind of interested in it. There was a gentleman out of the UK, Michael K. He goes by the Facebook handle Crayon Monkey. He's a prop artist, and he and I were talking and stuff. He was doing different things was putting together parts for 3D printing parts for the Tamiya Corsair. Okay. And so he kept doing Anycubic, and he and I started having a conversation, Facebook Messenger style and stuff like that. I really was kind of like, okay. And then Anycubic had a New Year's Day special. I jumped on getting the Photon Mono. And I mean, it was between, they had a combo with that and the wash and cure station. So I just went ahead and showed it to Jamie, and she's like, that's all it is? I mean, it was, like $250 for both of them or something like that for the special. It was just insanely cheap. And my wife, being the supportive individual that she is, was like, get it? Okay. Went ahead and ordered it up, and it took a while to get here. It was like probably the end of January, early part of February before we had everything set up, and just kind of started dabbling. I've started printing up things for figures and detail sets for the figures and stuff like that, as well as for armor kits, the Jackson Stanton stuff for the M18 Hellcat, been printing that up, and, Tank Brusher, and, all the different homebrew and different folks that are doing parts and stuff. I've been getting them, and I got these little tackle box type organizers that I'll print the parts out and put them in there for a future project, that type of thing. But it's been interesting. And then this year here, we just upgraded to the X2. Just probably, I want to say around September, I got it. Just before you guys came to the house, maybe a month before I got it. Haven't had a chance to really dive into that, but I'm looking to do bigger projects like, print, complete larger scaled models and stuff. It's been interesting. I'm mostly a printer. I haven't figured out, I'm not a CAD designer and stuff like that. I've reached out to, a couple of folks that we both know, Jackson Stanton and Grizz. Zach Grizzle and stuff for help, and they've been kind enough to kind of like throw me a bone every now and then, that type of thing.
Yeah, they're good people once in a while.
Yeah. I mean,
well, I think that's encouraging, because, a lot of people, we talk about 3D printing all the time, and I think it does scare people. But, if there's anything to be learned here, anybody can do it. And, it's an addiction, it seems, certainly with me. And I think with you as well, based on looking at your table there and how many things you have printed.
Well, it was both. So a while back, I reached out to, when you guys were here, I started talking with both Scott and Doug about, the 3D printing, and they recommended, Soraya Tech, and I went with that for changing the resin stuff. And I'm like, cool. And a couple of figures and stuff that I painted so far with it, they're night and day from what I was using from like the Anycubic Basic, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to printing out a lot more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I use Soraya Tech as well, and I have BJ DeBecker to thank for that. I had struggled with printing, and then he talked me through it and helped out a lot. And then the Soraya Tech stuff, especially the navy gray, I have a lot of luck with it. Now, I will say, listeners, it's not for everyone. Jackson Stanton, probably listening, is throwing things across the room because he doesn't agree with Soraya Tech, but it It works for me. I know that saying doesn't
Works for me.
carry much weight in the world, but no, all jokes aside, I think it's important. You just kind of hit on it. Once you find that, magic elixir and it works for you, I think it turns headaches into, smiles. And I remember going over to your house and just seeing the loads of prints you have, especially all those little BattleTech guys, and they look fantastic. And I think once you once you start getting production quality stuff like that, it just makes it fun. And I can't wait to see bigger projects you do with that big Anycubic. I think you could probably print a Warhammer tank, probably 2 on the build plate, for crying out loud.
That might have been the purpose behind it, to be honest. I was
Nice.
like, ooh, the larger build plate, I could do a few things. There's a lot of good, over on 3D Cult, or was it Cults 3D? I always say 3D Cults, but
the purple site.
Yeah, the purple site. Exactly. There's a lot of good, original, models out there that I'm looking forward to printing.
As we talk about your setup and your bench and some of the unique pieces you have, 3D printing, wash cure stations, one of the other things I found very interesting, and I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, and I'd love for you to talk us through it, is the little easy bake oven, as you refer to. I think it's one of the coolest things in the world. Talk us through, what it is, how you use it, and what are the benefits you find with it.
Sure. So if you get the MicroMark catalog, okay, it's called the Micro Make Dr. Dry Booth. Okay, and I have the vertical version. There's a horizontal, larger horizontal one, then there's a smaller version one. And it's essentially a dehumidifier in a sense, but it's perfect for the desktop. It's got multiple repositional shelves and all that, nice little timer, or it can be on all that. The cool thing about it, and it was one of those things, like here in Colorado, especially in the basement, I had a problem with clear coats. I did a 48 scale, the British Humber, right? And when I clear coated it, because of the way, the way it happened to be that day or whatever down here, it frosted, just ruined the finish. And I was like, oh crap, what the hell? How do I fix this? And somebody recommended getting like a dry booth or whatever. And so I ended up looking for that, saw it in the MicroMark catalog, and then went ahead and like, well, I picked it up. In about 10, 15 minutes in the dry booth, acrylics and most paints are done like 24 hours cure. And so I'm able to, especially with the figures, I'll put the detail on it or do whatever, spray the clear coat, put it in the dry booth for about 10, 15 minutes. They're done. It's hard. I can go right on to weathering with enamels, oils, whatever, throw that back in the dry booth when it's done, run it for another 15 minutes, and they're dry. So it cures everything almost, pretty much. To some, like lacquers, it might take a little extra, like, ooh, I'll put it in there for 20 minutes or something like that. But it cures it to where I've never had a problem with a clear coat ever again. I shoot Aqua Gloss, I shoot Tamiya Clear, I shoot all the other ones, the Vallejo and MIG Lucky varnishes and stuff like that without any issues. Spray it, put it in the dry booth, done, and comes out perfect. And it allows me to sit, because of that, I don't have to wait overnight to move on to the next color or do the next thing. I can throw them in there for 10, 15 minutes, go up, make a sandwich, come back down, or get a refill in my coffee or something like that, come back down, and I'm ready to start the next color. Definitely worth the cost, and because it's in saving me time and effort and frustration with having, a messed up finish.
That's pretty innovative. I'm gonna have to look into that. You're the first person that you always kept talking about this easy bake oven. I'm like, what is he talking
That's what Jamie
about?
calls
it. See, you have mental picture.
I haven't tried brownies yet.
I was gonna say, you're down there making cupcakes while you're painting your
beef jerky.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to get back to Bradley Hobbies. We gave you a hard time about it, but you had mentioned Jamie kind of bringing some organization, but for the people that haven't been in your basement, kind of let people in on what your basement space and your hobby space looks like. What does Bradley Hobbies look like?
Okay. So Bradley Hobbies, our house has what they call a garden level basement. So it's not this full massive basement. It's literally, we're a Colorado multi-level house. And so it's probably about 15 feet wide and 30 feet long. Okay. One portion, about a third of it, Jamie's stacked up or added the garage type storage shelves, some plastic stuff there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of the model kits, 2 long rows and then 2 short rows. That's where she's got everything categorized for like the aircraft models are on one section. Then you've got the armor set kits. You've got the Warhammer, all the GW and Warhammer and sci-fi kits. You got the helicopter kits, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shelves of Doom. Sorry. So,
that would be the scratch and dent section.
Yeah. And then because we've got everything, one of the half of the racks is her kits and her kits alone, but like her armor stuff and all that. And then you've got our workspaces, which are basically 6-foot tables, folding tables that she set up with the Hobby Zone storage stuff. She called it storage porn when we started looking through the catalog and stuff, because they're all the little MDF, the NDF stuff that you assemble. And so we bought a bunch of that during one Christmas, went through and just spent, with the Dremel and putting it all together and getting that set up. And then she added a couple of extra tables along the window here for like the Zoom, the computer setup, the dry booth, and then a table behind me, which has the 3D printers plus the photo stations she set up. And she added, because the little photo booth doesn't have it, we ended up getting these little on-off buttons through Amazon to turn the devices on and off, that type of thing. Works out well. And then the last third, if you will, is the RC hobbies, furnace, stuff like that, the airplanes. And there's probably about a dozen giant scale. That's mostly what I fly, is the giant scale. So most of them are 30 to 35 cc airframes, and that's with gas. And then but I do have one 50 cc extra that is, basically I fly stuff like that.
Yeah, really impressive aircraft for sure. You kind of mentioned that, Jamie likes to build armor and also orc armies. Let's get into what Mark likes to build. I know there's obviously a wide range, but what are maybe some of your primary interests that you like to, model on your own bench?
I started out as a kid. I was doing aircraft and cars because we had, the hobby shop had closed in the late 70s. And then I was basically, when we lived in Michigan and stuff, we'd occasionally go to different hobby shops and stuff, and I'd get mostly aircraft and all that. About 10 years old, we moved down to Tennessee, where my mother's from, and most of my teenage years, all of my teenage years, were pretty much there in Tennessee. And so there we were at KB Toys, and Walmart didn't have them back then, but we'd hit like KB's toy store and other things like that. So I was doing aircraft and some armor, testers kits, monogram, the usual ones that you could get available, and till about 89. And then we used to make yearly trips up to Michigan for visiting family and stuff from my dad's side of the family, or my stepdad's side of the family. And there they would stop by a hobby shop, and they picked up Hasegawa F-14, 72nd scale F-14 for me, and then the Tamiya M60A3. And that really was like, ooh, that was my first armor kit. I built them and did all that. So for the longest time, I was like strictly aircraft. I dabbled in armor. I kind of did cars and away now then until about the mid 90s, when a friend of mine turned me on to Warhammer. And then I started doing, I was asked to paint up a box of Space Marines for the local hobby town for display. And I went ahead and did that. And then they took the display case out, and they said, when I finished the models, like in a month, they'd already taken the display case out, and they're like, oh, you can keep them. Okay. So I just had these 10 guys painted. I'm like, okay. And then a friend of mine kind of got me into it, and, I'd help them for tech support, and he'd give me a few models here and there and stuff like that for, that type of thing from his collection and stuff. And then I kind of transitioned into, over the last 20 years, I do sci-fi models as well. I've got the Fine Molds Star Wars kits. You guys have turned me on to the Bandai Star Wars kits, and I've been adding to that. I really, for armor, I love doing the 48 scale, Tamiya 48 scale armor, because they're, being an aircraft modeler for so many years, that was my scale. And armor, I feel, like right here, I've got this Sherman that I'm hoping to have done by amps that, I've been working on for a little bit, and, it'll hopefully get there. And it's just the right scale for me to experiment. And if I screw it up, even though I'm going to have, sleepless nights because I screwed it up, and my wife will laugh at me and make fun of me at times, like, really, big baby, you've not like you don't have enough of them. Another one I could just pull off the shelf and do it again. Yes, dear. We give each other a hard time. But yeah, it was so like 48 scale armor. I just really enjoy, and as well as the figures.
Yeah. And you had a Darth Vader's TIE fighter that you brought to combies. And then I think you brought it to nationals as well, right?
Correct. Yeah. I was very fortunate when I took it to commies. It actually got best sci-fi, so I got first place, and then I got best sci-fi. And there's this great little picture of me with a buddy shot standing there next to JB, like, holding the little thing, the medallion and stuff. And then when we went to San Marcos, I went ahead and entered the category, and I got a first place for it there. And I'd never. We took stuff to Vegas. We took stuff to Omaha. I took stuff to San Marcos, and this was the first time. This and the little submarine that I did, German U-boat I did, were the first time I ever placed at a Nats. So, well,
it was well deserved. It's a beautiful build, and you incorporated a really nice base from Bases by Bill, underneath it. Just a really nice presentation, and really, really liked it. So well deserved on that build.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
So if you're talking about Star Wars stuff,
mm-hmm.
There's something else going on at your home that we haven't touched on yet, and it has to do with Star Wars. I know we don't usually talk about religion or politics here, but tell us about the Star Wars room.
So when Jamie and I first got together, I asked a very important question: Star Wars or Star Trek? She was adamant. She goes, Star Trek Next Generation. I'm like, yeah, no, fine. We still have that argument because I'm a Kirk fan in Star Trek and she's a Picard fan. Fine. It's the haircut, I think. I had so much stuff I collected from Star Wars, the toys and the figures and stuff as a kid. I had a little toy chest. We actually have a toy chest that my best friend put together years ago with all the G.I. Joe blueprints, on it, that he and his family laminated it, took the little toy chest from IKEA and put all the G.I. Joe blueprints that came with the figures, all wallpapered it basically, and sealed it. And that holds various toys and G.I. Joe collections and stuff like that. Well, I had all this Star Wars memorabilia from, stuff like the first celebration that was here, held at the Wings Over the Rockies Museum here in Colorado back in '99 when they did episode 1, that type of thing. They held that celebration here, and I had a bunch of stuff from that. I had all these different things, various boxes and stuff like this. Jamie had the idea of, instead of having it strewn throughout the house or in boxes or whatever, she took the spare room upstairs and transformed it into the Star Wars room. She had red curtains. As a kid, I was a fan of Rebels. As an adult, I can totally understand and align with the Empire. I mean, I was one of those warped children. Darth Vader was my childhood hero. So she put all this stuff together, did the decorating, got a whole couch to match the motif for the Empire, and turned this whole thing into a Star Wars room. We had friends and family come over. They're like, "Oh, can we stay in the Star Wars room?" Sure. My buddy, his kids were there. We'd roll out the couch turned into a bed. The parents got the comfy bed. The kids all loved the rollaway bed, the hideaway bed, so to speak. And they were like, "Wow, you got this and that." And part of the collection, I have the whole Hot Wheels Star Wars collection in a box because we don't have enough display cases to support that. Jamie would search out and find all that and figures and different things and stuff like that for that. When we started the barbecue business, we needed an office. So we turned that into spare room, back into our office, and we moved all the Star Wars display cases and stuff down to our rec room. And then she turned the whole rec room into the new Star Wars room. So we added models, books, reference books, and put IKEA shelving up and stuff like that. But also she took one of the display cases and put all the Star Wars Legos that we have, because she's a big Lego geek. That's her other hobby. And so we have that. And then just before you guys came out, a couple years ago, we found that Hallmark was doing special ornaments. And so now when we set up in the Star Wars room for Christmas, we have a special Star Wars tree with the ornaments and stuff like that play, the various scenes and stuff through New Hope, including the Battle of Yavin. Yeah, it's it's a geek room. We have a lot of fun with it.
Well, when we were there, Jamie, after we had the tour of the house, Jamie comes to me and says, "Did he show you the tree?" So yes, he showed me the tree. I got to watch A New Hope on that tree. It was pretty great.
Yeah, Christmas is her favorite time of the year. And so she loves to decorate the house. I mean, matter of fact, she's turned this house into a home. And that was the big thing when I had bought the house as in 2008 when I was single and stuff. And when she moved in, the walls, I hadn't even painted the walls. I had some test swatches that, had some neutral colors on it and stuff like this in the living room. And she's like, "It looks like a baby threw up on it." I'm like, "Great, thanks, honey." And so she went through and redid the whole house, all the stuff, and really turned it into a home. And during this time of the year, she'll decorate for Halloween. And then when Halloween's down, we'll start pretty much in November. We're doing the fall decoration for Thanksgiving and stuff. And some Christmas. I mean, usually about mid-December, we're getting the lights done outside and the trees, getting decorated with the lights and stuff. And we're getting ready for Christmas and going through. When she heard you guys were coming, we know how big of Star Wars fans, Doug, you and Scott are. We looked at each other and said, "We got to get the Star Wars tree up at a minimum." So we went through and rushed and put it all together just so you guys could see it.
See it and hear it. Like Doug said, it tells you. I mean, if you sit there and watch it, it tells you pretty much the whole
it starts
story.
At the beginning with because the cool thing is that it's like 7 ornaments, and it'll actually, as the rolls, like for example, you've got the Death Star, the Star Destroyer, from the beginning and all that, and as well as the TIE Fighter, the Y-Wing, Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, the X-Wing, and the Millennium Falcon, and it'll bounce between, especially during Battle of Yavin. When it's Han talking, it jumps to the Millennium Falcon. Luke's talking, it jumps to his. Gold later, it jumps to his Y-Wing. And it's bouncing between all of these different ornaments throughout the object. And then finally at the end, when the Death Star blows up, it changes from, green to yellow to red and all these different colors. And it's really cool. When we saw that on display at the Hallmark store, we're like, "Oh yeah, we got to get this." Absolutely. And they were able to, "Oh yeah, we've got them all. Yay." So
this is mine now.
Yes.
Nothing says Christmas like blowing up an entire planet. That was kind of what I was thinking.
It's the ultimate Christmas star. Sorry, did I say that?
So, Mark, maybe this is where I can pick up. We talk about the social aspects of the hobby. We coming over to your house. I'd love to understand. Have you seen your hobby take a more social approach in the last couple years? I'd be interested to understand. You and Jamie always are a team. You go together, but maybe talk about. You've hosted gatherings. You go to shows. You go to meetings. Has your hobby evolved in that sense from a social standpoint as well?
Absolutely. Very much than what it used to be. When I started out, scale modeling for me was very solitary. So as a kid, it was one of those places that I could get away and focus on stuff. And it was just for me. It was just my thing. My folks got divorced in 77. My father came out to Colorado and we didn't have much, connection. It was my stepdad that, became my dad, so to speak. And he didn't necessarily fully understand the hobby, but he was 100% encouraging because he did athletics and sports. He was, he played football in high school and early on in college. And then he did, wrestling and stuff like that through high school and all that. So he was always like, how come he's not out playing sports or whatever? But on the flip side, he was always encouraging for it. There's times where it's like, he should be out chasing girls or stuff like this. But then it's like, yeah, go. He figured it out and he was always encouraging for the hobby and go here, go there, do this and do that. And it was very solitary for me. And then in college, we had moved back up after high school and stuff. We moved back up to Michigan for a couple of years, and I was going to go to college up there and did take college for a couple of years there. And I actually started going to a hobby shop called Great Lakes Hobbies in Michigan. And there I was encouraged they had an IPMS club. And I went there and joined the kind of attended a few meetings here and there and did that. That was the first time. It was never just about me modeling by my, as a solitary project, a solitary hobby, because they would have the monthly meeting. You bring your model, show and tell, and get feedback. All right, thanks, John. But you get the feedback and stuff on it, and it was great. It was just a fantastic time. And then I moved out here to Colorado. I came out for Christmas vacation and stayed 32 years later, still on the Christmas vacation. When I first moved out here, I started looking around for different clubs and found one up in the Loveland, Fort Collins area called High Plains Maulers. I started going there on their monthly meetings, but still everything was, it's still a solitary hobby. And then when social media hit, things kind of changed because with Facebook, especially the last 5 or 6 years or so, I started sharing my hobby on my personal Facebook feed and getting feedback from friends and stuff like this that happened to be maulers or what. And I also had some folks that knew I was in the hobby, friends and family and stuff, and then they never really saw my work. And I posted that up there, and all of a sudden my, cousins and stuff were like pinging me up like, dude, that's awesome. You should be doing it. How can I do it? Okay. Well, this is what we did. And I started going through that. But then with the social media aspect, that's more and more become, posting things to the Facebook group like the Posse. That's been great because I put stuff up there and you get real feedback, real critiques, positive and negative. And you're like, okay, I can work with that, or I can choose to ignore that or whatever. And it's been a great experience for me. Meeting you at Nats, John, I didn't know anything about the podcast before then. I wasn't really into the Facebook groups and stuff like that until, we took your seminar. So it's your fault. So we took your seminar and, you showed up late. Oh, no, I'm teasing. That's the day you were at the airfield. And no, it's like, I got to take the walk. Sure.
I want to thank Ian Bonner again for tap dancing in front of everyone.
Yeah, he did a good job. And it was great. And I, met you a few times throughout. Jamie we'd been following you on Facebook and stuff. And Jamie was like, got to take a seminar. I like this guy. Okay. We didn't really know you that well at that time. And now we do. And then that kind of led to the other folks, meeting Scott and Doug and the other folks. Posting on the social media, and I started the Instagram for sprue glue and barbecue to post the stuff there. That's been great. It's opened it up a lot from me just being at a workbench as a kid or a young adult or an old adult for that matter, and getting feedback, getting positive and negative stuff, and it's just been great. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think it answers it perfectly. And we
tend to ramble.
No, that's what we like. We like rambling guests. But
well, you picked a good one, me.
But it's kind of like we joke around, hey, we all coming out to commies, and it's like, yeah, there's a model show, but that's not what it's about, right? I mean, it becomes the model show is sort of what you buy the ticket for. And then it's all the, having barbecue with you and Jamie and hanging out and watching night shift videos and, sitting around John's table till 2:00 in the morning. That's really, really what, this hobby's all about. And like you said, getting to know people, you don't actually live that far from John. But but you really know him, and we all have those stories. One of my best buddies in the world is Josh Buck, who lives literally less than a mile from me. And the way that I met him was through the Posse. He sent me a message and he said, did you say you were from Eagle Mountain, on the Posse? And it's like, I live in Eagle Mountain and I'd never met him before, and it's great. Obviously the hobby, being social and, everything is great, but getting to know, I mean, you guys are so generous to bring us into your home and to feed us. And it was so much fun getting to know you and getting to see your work and getting to see where your work comes from. That's incredible.
That's been the best the last several years. I mean, since meeting you guys initially, John and stuff, like I said, at Vegas. And then when we were talking to him and he's like, oh, I'm moving to Parker. And we're like, oh, let us know if you need anything, and that kind of started that. And then, having you guys come out and all this, it's like, because we love to cook, normally because we love to cook food and all this, it was a great excuse to like, hey, let's go feed these guys. Okay. Food is the great, it opens up so many doors except for, unless you run across a vegetarian like Mr. Munsell and Mr. Drayton. Like, I'm sorry, guys, but yeah, we cook smoked meats. Sorry. Normally I give somebody
cornbread was great too.
it was funny is Steve, when we were at San Marcos, Steve's like, here's some extra value gear stuff. Okay, cool. And I'm like, we'll hook you up with rubs and sauces, and next time, if you come to Denver, we'll give you a barbecue. He's like, I'm a vegetarian. And I'm like, that's your problem, but we'll still give it to you.
Mark, that kind of leads me to my next question, sort of what's next for Mark. Let's start with your modeling. What are some projects that you're kind of excited about, aside from the scratch and dent section of Bradley Hobbies? What are you excited about? And do you have kind of as a follow on, do you have kind of a magnum opus or something really big and grand you'd like to do?
At Bradley Hobbies, we have that. We have that. So for me, I plan to make the trek with you guys to AMPS this year for the AMPS Nationals and stuff. And so 2 projects of mine that I want to try and get done for AMPS. One is the 48 scale Sherman that I'm working on here. I want to get that done so it'll make the trip for that. The other one I'm doing is for Project Overlord. I'm doing the M8 Greyhound from Tamiya. I was agonizing over, do I do the interior? Do I not? I've decided I'm closing it up as far as the hatches. I'm just going to kind of add some value stuff and some little details. That way I can get it done for Overlord. Possibly for commies, I'd like to try and get, because our friend Steve Baker roped me into the buddy build for the 109K, for the Edward 109K. I'd like to try and get that done. The cockpit's done. I kind of got buttoned up before the holidays, and so I'm to the stage of painting the exterior. I'd love to get that done for Commies Fest. Worst case, but definitely by Nats. For Madison this year. And then I'm painting Dark Angel Space Marines and stuff because that's for the Wargamer side. I want to try and get a new Dark Angels Army, Space Marine Army ready for this year, fall on later this year. And then for Nats, the airplane, but I also want to do the Bandai TIE Interceptor that I picked up with the San Marcos decals that Rob Booth and those guys put together. Fantastic team, fantastic set, and I'm looking forward to that.
That's a great sheet. That scheme is going to look really great on an Interceptor.
That's the whole reason I got that kit. I mean, it was just for that because I had the fine mold one, and it's just a little smaller for the decals, and I was like, doggone it. So it was sized specifically for the Bandai, so I did the search for it, and I'm looking forward to that, getting that kit done. But this year for the shows, I'm looking at the 2 shows here in Colorado, Commies Fest in March, the High Plains Con in the fall, AMPS this year, as well as the Nats in Madison this year. Those are probably the shows that we're going to be attending. Unless there's another show like, say, in Salt Lake, we'll probably make the trek if it who knows. So any other local shows. As for the Magnum Opus model, it used to be things like I had the Fine Molds Fine Molds Millennium Falcon. And that one, I was like, I'm going to probably build that. But a few years ago, I started doing research. My grandfather on my mother's side was a flight engineer on a B-24 Liberator during World War II. He was with the 8th Air Force, 44th Bomb Group, 506th Bomb Squadron. And he was basically a guy who did the center turret or the top turret. And so I recently came across this at a hobby shop called the Model Cave in Michigan. Came across the Hasegawa 172nd scale Liberator. And I've started putting stuff together for one of his aircraft. Because he's with the 8th Air Force, they basically took all the service records. There's a volunteer organization that's taking the service records for the 8th and 9th Air Force and digitizing. And I was actually able to find my grandfather's service records, both from when he joined the U.S. Army Air Corps, in World War II, as well as his mission records that included the actual aircraft serial numbers that he was on for that mission. And so they didn't have all of his missions because according, he was with, there was a transfer and some stuff like that from one unit to another, that type of thing. But what I found was for when he was with the 506, I found all of his mission logs from January till April of 45, as well as the serial numbers. Now, the 8th Air Force, they've taken also all the serial numbers of the aircraft as much as they can and put those on, and any photographs related to that airframe, they put on that database, and you can totally search by that number. So I've gotten 4 or 5 different aircraft that he's been on and a couple of them have been on different decal sheets and stuff like that through Aeromaster and different manufacturers over the years that had them. And so my plan is to put that together hopefully in the next couple of years. Edwards came out with some really good bits, and I add that to it as well.
That's awesome. That's a worthy project. You can't wait to see that kind of start to come together for you.
Yeah, thank you.
So any sporting events in the near future you might have passing interest in, Mark?
I think there's one tomorrow night. Being from Michigan, I happen to be a lifelong Michigan fan. Also, it's just from my childhood and stuff. My dad was a redshirt freshman for Michigan back in '69 until he tore his shoulder in practice, and that ended that career. We always, as a kid, adulthood, watched the games. I'm a huge Michigan fan. Matter of fact, Jamie's got a little placard that says "Go Blue" above our thermostat and stuff like that we always had in the house, and this and that and a few other things. And so I'm really looking forward to the game tomorrow night against Washington, and hopefully they'll win it, and we'll get a new national championship, and Jamie will get me a new T-shirt.
Well, best of luck on that. So, any parting shots? Any other things that you want us to know about Mark or Bradley Hobbies or anything else?
We have everything. My irresponsibility means we have everything. So,
we have it, so you don't have to.
Pretty much.
That's right.
I mean, it's been, I've been collecting stuff for 30 some years since I got out here.
For those who haven't had a chance, if you do get out to commies and, you get a chance to sample Mark and Jamie's cooking or their hospitality, or just sitting and having an incredible conversation with them. They're great people. And Mark, you're a tremendous modeler. So we really, really appreciate you being on with us. Kind of going back to social media links, Instagram, Facebook, how do people access your modeling and more about you?
Sure. Basically, Facebook for modeling page and stuff is called Glue, Sprue, and Barbecue. That's the one where I'll put all the model related activities and stuff like that. That's both on Facebook as well as Instagram. We've got, for our barbecue stuff, we've got our spices, sweets, and meats, but that's on Facebook as well. But like I said, that's mostly for following. Jamie will post pictures we'll post pictures and stuff on that. Yeah, for the most part, Glue, Sprue, and Barbecue is how you can get in touch with me and follow along.
Awesome. You can also see Mark's work on the posse, as he mentioned. Check out what he's doing on his bench and his several armies that are behind him as they get painted. Hopefully we'll see those pop up on the posse as well. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Doug, JB, anything else for our guests?
I just want to say thank you for everything. Thanks for being our friend and hanging out with us for all these years now and sharing your time and your meat and your modeling with us.
I just have to echo what Doug and Scott said. Mark, we started off as acquaintances, and now I think we're best of friends. And I'm a little biased in this, but I think that's the force of the Plastic Posse podcast. We look for people like yourself and Jamie. We want to be friends with you. We want to get to know you, and we want you part of the family. And I think that's what we have here. And certainly can't wait to see you both again. And to our listeners, this is just a great example. We were strangers 2 years ago, and now we're best of friends. So I think it's just a principle that we take is, say hi, stay happy, and keep in touch and focus on the things that bring you joy. And that's certainly the scale modeling that we love to discuss. And then also, as Doug mentioned, the meats. So with that, again, just thank you so much. Oh gosh. Oh my Lanta. Yeah. So we'll extend
the cookies are pretty
We'll extend this interview. I think the biggest, Texas was great, but I'll never forget the bag of treats that Jamie showed up with at our table in Omaha. And I think, that was sugar overload, but I just remember the bag, and it's like one of those magic tricks. Things just kept coming out of it. But certainly amazing. Also, the cookies were great. I'll be honest. I love the trail mix. That was like really good. I could use that again.
That's the one we put together for all the road trips back in, every year we go back to Michigan or drive to Nance. And that's the one she puts together. It's a little bit of the normal trail mix, and she'll add a little bit of this and that. She's been sprinkling she has her own rub combination for that too. And it's just, oh yeah, I'll sit there and we'll have the big Ziploc gallon baggie on the center console. And either one of us we're driving down the road, recreating, Homer and a donut. So, yeah. Thank you. She when we were Omaha, when Jensen was coming to, for his first ever Nats and stuff like this, and you guys were talking about road trip snacks, that's what inspired that. We're like, oh yeah, okay. She started putting all those cookies together for it, and it's going to become a Nats tradition for us. I mean, so anytime we'll see you guys, there you go.
Yeah, she seems like she's really, really good at taking care of people. She's a tremendously generous person.
She is. She's fantastic.
You're a lucky man.
I will say yes to that all day long, and absolutely. I mean, she's the best thing that ever happened to me, to be honest, and I couldn't be happier. Except when she takes one of my model kits and says it's mine, and I wasn't smart enough right off the bat to get two of them because I should have assumed she was going to like it.
Yeah, come on, Mark. That's what that's the message. Come on, man. Get two.
Kind of it.
Awesome. At Bradley Hobbies, we have that.
We have
two.
That's right. That's right. Well, Mark, thanks again for your time. It's been a lot of fun, and we will see you very, very soon. And can't wait to see what you bring to the show and just hang out with you again.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been an honor. Always.
Thank you, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Well, thanks so much for stopping by, Mark. Mark has been a constant supporter of the posse almost since day one, and he's a fantastic modeler, friend, and certainly his better half as well. Jamie is a wonderful supporter of the podcast. So we want to thank them both, and certainly can't wait to see them again. We'll see them at Commies Fest. Cannot wait because they are the best barbecuers in scale modeling. You heard it here. It's the truth. Check out their website as well for their spices and sauces. I'm going to kick it over to Doug now for some feedback.
All right. Why don't we do some of that feedback? Here we go. I'm going to start with Michael Geyer. He says, hello, guys. I loved the show again. Great interviews as always. I especially enjoyed the conversation about entering shows and how to become more supportive of new modelers. I hope to propose some new ideas to our chapter president for the next High Plains Con. Hope that you guys all had a wonderful holiday, and I'll see you around. Thank you, Michael. Martin Drayton had a nice letter to us. He said, I just wanted to compliment you on the latest episode. I think it was definitely one of your best. The interviews were top-notch, and the rapport between all of you is tangible. The interview with Clayton was great. I love his videos. They've been super helpful to me. I love the format he uses. As an instructor for over 30 years, I really appreciate his approach. And Stephen Lee, his input is really insightful. His blog is a must-read, always packed with great talking points. To killer interview. I really agree with JB regarding multiple genres to help you grow. When I started back in the hobby, I checked out railway modelers for scenery advice and miniature painters for figures. When TJ talked about matching a build to a photo, I could really identify with the problems you encounter trying to replicate the vehicle exactly. I built a Battle of the Bulge scene last year from a famous photo, but I could only find one photo from one side. I scoured the internet, but nothing turned up. I even contacted multiple Battle of the Bulge groups on the internet and even museums around the Bastogne area. No one had any photos, so I used my imagination to model the side that can't be seen. No one could even tell me how it was knocked out. Interesting. We all remember that one. That was a killer diorama, and his approach was really nice.
Yeah, he doesn't let things get in his way. He's a great modeler and just keeps getting better and better.
And we got one from our buddy Enrique. He said, hi, guys. A long time no see. I really enjoyed your Christmas mega episode, I have to say. After a year and a half without any Star Wars projects of any sort, I built the Star Wars Legion terrain piece with my son at the start of the Christmas holidays. And with the weather here in Germany being absolutely terrible, for the entire duration of the school break, I ended up spending a lot more hours on the bench than I imagined. To be honest, this inspired me far more than any of the Warhammer models I've been churning out for my armies lately, and I think it shows. Regards from Hanover. He did share with us a bunch of pictures. He gave us links. We could see what he's done, and it was a lot of fun. He did a crashed X-Wing diorama, one of the Legion kits. It was really well done, and it's a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for that, Enrique. That's what I have for feedback for today.
Thanks, Doug. I'll keep it quick on the Operation Overlord group build. It is still going on in the background. We have 2 of them going. We have one for armor or land vehicles that is 1/35th scale and being managed by our very own TJ Holler, also known as TJ Hammer. And then also we have a 1/48 scale aircraft contingent, and that is being managed by the Model Geek. So if you're interested, it's very simple. Pick one of those subjects and one of those scales and build it and bring it to Madison this summer for the national convention. It is display only. If you're not a member of the society, you can still bring 2 models to display and enjoy the show. So we greatly encourage you to participate in these group builds. If you have any questions, we have a Facebook page, so check it out. Link in the show notes. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Grant.
Are you a member of the Plastic Posse group page on Facebook? Well, you should be. Remember that you can send your feedback and suggestions to us via email at plasticpossepodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for that, Grant. Next topic. This will be a quick one. This will be our second one for the day, but I think it's an interesting one. You know, we talk about Holy Grail kits, and it's interesting. It's interesting because I think the Grail kit list is getting shorter and shorter because manufacturers are popping more and more. So with that, I'd love to have a segment around what's our Grail kit, and the objective of this segment is for not only us but our listeners as well, and encourage. We'll post on Facebook and everyone can contribute to. But the idea behind this is you throw out your Grail kit and maybe someone in the community has it, and maybe they're willing to part with it for a reasonable price. And that's the whole idea behind this, is not only what your Grail kit is, but also the option and potential of obtaining it. So I'll kick us off. I think I have 2, but I'll stick with one. It's the Zukimura Edelweiss. So it is that sci-fi tank that came out probably about 15 years ago, I bet. It was readily available for a long time, and I think they stopped producing it, and now it's scarce as hen's teeth. So it's certainly something that's pretty awesome. I had the chance to buy it several times at the IPMesh National Convention when Zukimura attended. I think I saw one at Chattanooga back in 2019, I want to say. But regardless, it is a Grail kit of mine. I hope to grab it one day, and not for $300 off of eBay, but maybe for a more reasonable price. But that's me. I'll pause there, and I'm going to kick it over to Zach.
So I have had a Grail kit for a while, and Mr. Bonani actually has one. However, we were talking yesterday, and it has come to my attention that it's not that good. Regardless, it's the Panzer III Mine Raumer. I forget. I think it's Mine Raumer in German. By Bold Division, because it's like, what's not cool about a lifted Panzer III with a giant mine roller in front? So that is still probably a Grail kit for me if I can ever find it. Although I may not end up building it, but I guess we'll see. At least I'll have it, right?
Are they out of production?
I think so.
Okay.
It seems like they are. You don't find them anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Zach's is the Pimp My Ride, Lift My Panzer III Minenrahmer.
Lift Mein Panzer.
Lift Mein Panzer.
Luft Mein Panzer.
With that, we're going to go across the pond. Jensen, what's on your short list?
Everything. I don't know. It changes weekly. It depends what I'm into. My Holy Grail kit doesn't exist. If it did, it would be a 1/32 Bristol Beaufort. But doesn't exist. And everything I want, I kind of have. So my Holy Grail kit will probably be something Mini Art is going to come out with in the future. That's all I can say, because everything I want, I have, and I'm fortunate that way. So yeah, my Holy Grail doesn't yet exist.
You heard it here, listeners. Jensen has everything he wants and more. I can't wait until a future episode where you complain about something that you don't have.
No doubt 10 minutes after we finish recording, I really need that, and I don't have it.
I want this. This is a kit I need. I didn't know I needed this at the time of the recording.
John, it's because everywhere he goes, it's kind of like, this is mine now. I'm taking this.
Yeah. I don't deal in currency. I'm just taking it.
He's taking back small parts of America one piece at a time.
That's right.
This belongs to the crown now.
Little do you know, listeners, he actually works for the British Museum.
I just go around with a really big bag. So if you see me with a big bag, like the big bag I took to London.
Or the one you stole from the hotel and filled up.
That was a bedding bag.
And then it exploded.
And you just walked away so fed up.
Like, I'm not dealing with this. You sort this. All right, listeners, we're way off track. We're going to get back on it. We're going to go over to Grant, a mature adult who can talk about his Grail kit.
You said that with a straight face, too. My Grail kit. I thought about this for a little bit. It's not really that hard to get, I don't think. I want that big, huge Tamiya Enterprise, the older one. You know, that big one they had. I don't know if
The
it's still
bathtub one.
yeah,
Huge
the
one.
monster one that they did in the 80s or 90s or whatever it was. Had the beautiful painting on the front cover of the box. It just had some great. That's probably, that's probably one of those kits I would love to have. More realistically, I think the Sherman with the huge wheels on it. I think someone built that for a Sherman Challenge before. But yeah, the big mine roller wheels are on the front, the back, the smaller ones in the back. I think that would be a good one to try and build also.
Awesome. All right, we're going to go back to Utah. We'll start with Doug. I'm guessing it's something sci-fi, but feel free to surprise me.
No, it's totally sci-fi. And it's not even Star Wars. It's never been made. I mean, it's been made in garage kits. It's been made in resin, but I want a Gunstar. I would love a Gunstar that was from Last Starfighter.
Yep.
I would love one that was injection molded with styrene instead of resin, because I don't want to play with huge chunks of resin. But I mean, I don't even have a lot of space for a display, but I would want that one big.
Yeah.
Something that would sit 18 inches tall. That would be just so cool. It was one of those, imagine I'm a 15-year-old boy watching a movie about a guy that goes to space because he was good at a video game. I wanted that. I wanted that for me. So yeah, and the ship was really cool for its time. Although I think you could probably make it, a little bit dingier and have a lot of fun with it, because, I mean, that thing was squeaky clean. Why? Because it was like early CGI in this that spaceship. So, but I just imagine that would be a lot of fun. That'd be just tons of fun.
That's a great ship, man. That brings back some serious memories right there. Was it Arizona where the guy lived in the trailer park in the middle of nowhere?
It was in the middle of the desert. I don't know what state it was in, but it was.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Just print one, man. They have STLs.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of a printer.
Yeah.
My printer couldn't handle that.
Fun fact, Scott does.
No pressure.
All right. With that, we're going to go over to Scott, round out this segment.
Yeah, I've been fortunate in that, really a lot of the, when it comes to what you want a kit of and you don't have, most of it's either been made or I can 3D print it, like we've kind of talked about. But I am still waiting for a 1/16 scale Hetzer. Injection molded Hetzer. I think they would sell 1 billion of them, at least 2 to me. And then also a 1/16 scale, some World War II motorcycles. An Indian Chief, a Harley Davidson, some of the German motorcycles, a Triumph. That would be great. I think that's a perfect scale for those. And I'd like to see those done. And then, as far as kits, I've got some kits. Mr. Bradley, who was our guest, handed me a monogram Colonial Viper that was sealed when we were at Bradley Hobbies as a gift. Thank you very much. It's tremendous. I'm kind of been wanting lately. Any of you guys remember the old monogram 1/72 scale F16 XL? I love that. I love that kit.
Yeah.
I love some of those old classic kits. Like I have a couple copies of the old monogram 1/48 scale OA4M Skyhawk that the tail says Marinis instead of Marines on it. That for me was kind of a bit of a holy grail kit. So anyway. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping for a Hetzer and some bikes.
Nice. All right, we'll round out this segment, but I do want to throw one more in because it's such a hard kit to find. MiG Productions Panzer 38T Walker. It was built by Adam Wilder for the box art. You can't find it anywhere. If you have one, I only saw it once and it was $80 and I should have bought it. But if you got one, you're willing to let it go, please let us know.
I've got a quick question. Submarines, the fish submarine, who did those?
Oh, Michael Fichtenmeyer.
Yeah, I've got the fish submarine, but there's the other one.
There's 2. There's the long snout one that was his second, and his first one was the one that Mike Rinaldi did on his single mission book, I think, or single model book. That is
single model book.
Yeah.
There's one more in that series though, not the fish, but it did something else that's really kind of cool. I can't remember.
And I also have the photo etch coral that was available for that. Yeah. Wow. So the Industry Mechanica stuff is pretty rare. I know he stopped producing resin stuff, so whatever's out there is all that's out there, and they pop up from time to time. Those are certainly Grail kits, all of them.
I got the fish submarines. I got the short nose one at Nationals last year in Texas.
Oh, nice.
The guy behind us was selling it, and I got it for $50.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So, but yeah, That's another one.
No, that's good. His stuff is certainly are turning into Grail kits, and because he's moved more to STLs. But no, it was a good segment. So listeners, if you're interested in something, throw it on the post that we'll make on the Facebook page, and we'll see what we can find and help each other out. So with that, we're going to go to Jensen for a little bit of cross promotion.
Yes, we are. The Plastic Posse is just one of several scale modeling podcasts. If you're interested in more scale modeling content, you can head over to modelpodcasts.com, where you'll find links to many other great podcasts, such as Small Subjects, Plastic Model Mojo, Just Making Conversation, the Model Geeks podcast, the Modeling Insanity podcast, On the Bench, Sprue Cutters Union, Scale Model Podcast, and many more. We would also recommend several excellent scale modeling related blogs and vlogs, such as Stephen Lee's Sprue Pie with Frets, Chris Wallace's Model Airplane Maker, A Scale Canadian TV with Mr. Jim Bates, and David Brian Bridges' DB Scale Model Studio blog.
On that last one, if you guys haven't checked that out, give that a little look. DB Scale Model Studio blog. David is becoming a better and better blog writer all the time, and I've really been enjoying his latest entries. So anyway, check him out and give him a kind of a special shout out. All right, Grizz, what time is it?
It is everyone's favorite time of day. It's merch time. If you would like to rep the posse, check out our awesome merch on our Triple P spinning page. You can find coffee mugs, t-shirts, jumpers, and even some of our world famous Triple P lounge trousers.
All right, Zach is out. I'm back in. You can find all of our stylish Plastic Posse merch at plastic-posse-podcast.creator-spring.com or loungetrousers.com. Now, with that, we're going to wrap up the episode. We want to thank everyone for riding along for episode 85, even Zach Grizzle on the Plastic Posse. We appreciate your support as always. This is not possible without your help on Patreon. So thankful for it. We also want to thank our sponsors, Tankcraft, Tamiya USA, AK Interactive for their support throughout the year and coming into this new year with awesome products. Remember, the Plastic Posse is now available on YouTube as well. So please click a like and subscribe over there. We're going to be doing more show reports and even some techniques. So stay tuned for that. Those are goals this year that we hope to achieve. So we'll return in 2 weeks with more fun and great discussions about scale modeling, the best hobby there is. If you have any feedback for us, suggestions, comments, complaints, or want to comment on Zach's performance, feel free to email us or comment on our pages. So with that, I want to thank you all again for riding along, and yeehaw!
One of the ways that you can help to support the Plastic Posse is to become a Plastic Posse Outrider. All the cool kids are doing it. If you want to become a Plastic Posse Outrider, it's really easy. Just go over to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Plastic Posse Podcast, and you can set up a recurring donation there. These contributions help us offset the cost of bringing you the Triple P. There are 3 different tiers of support that start at only $1 a month. And there are some great benefits to being an outrider, like early access to podcasts, premium access to the host, the chance to appear on a podcast, and exclusive Triple P content and social events at model shows. Also, just wanted to let people know, when you do make contributions, besides equipment and hosting fees, what we use these funds for are Plastic Posse coins, swag. We sponsor categories at model shows. All of the money that goes to the Patreon goes back to the community, and we really appreciate everybody's support.
Let's recognize our amazing deputy marshals. These guys step up and help the posse do what we do. We sincerely thank them for their support. And our deputy marshals are Casey Gray, Mike Norris, Stephen Rodwell, Rick Cooper, Tim Gidcombe, Dan Newman, Robert Blocker, Tyler Moore, Derek Post, Craig Flynn, Brian Kreiner, Scale Model Craft, Ken Childress, Nick Butta, Drew Gardner, Scott Hall, Frank Perrone, the voice of Bob, Jeremy Diamond, Ryan Smith, Terry Wilkinson, Chris Lovewell, Andrew Callis, Ethan Eidenmill, Bruce the Model Noob, Steve Baker, Eric Deglish, Joe Porche, Patrick Brown, Steve Schaefer, Jay Kidd, Brandon Gentry, Robert Klein, Mark Ewing, Ted Kawahara, Toadman, Model Doc, Doug Reed, Greg James, Les Werkala, John Everett, Josh Buck, Thomas Bannock, Mark Bradley, Zach Pease, Joel Munson, Eric Brubaker, Jeremy Moore, DB Scale Model Studio, Matt Johnson, Jeremy Elliott, Mike Talley, Previous Seat, Mediocre Middle-Aged Modeler, Dan Knoffel, and JC Osborne.
And a happy birthday to Nick Butta, and congratulations on your Wolverines, Mark Bradley.
Let's also recognize our excellent posse foremen. These foremen are outriders who give the deputy marshals a hand. Keith, James, William, Tim, Jeff, Eddie, Ross, George, Gary, Warhoff Models, Ross, Eric, Len, Cliff, Eric, Papa Steve, Red Beach One Studios, MD Models, JV, Damien, Kieran, Cody, Tim, Nukeman Mike, Greg, Ash, Irish Pat, Paul, What's the Deal with iBones Models, Mr. Grizz, Jackson, MAK Armor, Chris, Lee, and Jamie.
And of course, the Posse Outriders. Please consider posting a review of the Triple P on your podcast platform. Each 5-star review helps another modelers find the Posse podcast. Thanks again, guys.